Today, I am pretty much convinced that my friend is faking his own death just to avoid talking to me ever again, as I got a really cryptic text message from his phone that honestly has me in shambles, because right now I really just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk? This is some crazy behavior, dude. The original poster in this first one is dealing with someone who is potentially taking like the craziest measures possible just to avoid talking to them ever again. And we're talking like possibly faking your own death kind of thing. So really get ready for this one. It is incredibly weird. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk, turn on notifications by clicking the bell, and with that, let's get started. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I had not heard from my friend in about a month, so I sent over a text just checking in. I then got a response in the middle of the night from a supposed family member saying that they had passed away the day after I last spoke to them. Now, I, of course, was torn to bits. I cried and kept reading the message over and over, just in denial of all of it. However, as I kept reading, I realized that the family member who texted me is texting exactly the same way that my friend did. I also got the text around the same time they usually text me, as they work overnight. But then I realized that I had texted them from their work phone, which is the very device that no one should have access to due to like the security of their job. Like if they did pass, the phone should have been turned in by now. So with this in mind, I got to work. I looked for obituaries, but there was nothing at all. I looked for death certificates, but again, I found nothing. I sent over my condolences and I asked if there was a service for them, and they told me they did have a service, and they even told me where my friend was buried. And once again, this is like the normal time my friend would be texting me due to their schedule, and not for like a normal person working a regular 9-to-5 job. I then called another friend to vent because I was just in a very bad frame of mind, and I had recently lost a family member earlier this year, so things were really just starting to pile up for me. He then called the cemetery for me, and they said they had no one under their name that was buried there. And honestly, at this point, I am crushed. We didn't have any issues the last time we spoke, and if they didn't want to be friends anymore, I would have much appreciated that instead of thinking this. I don't know, I feel like I overreacted and perhaps I'm just in a deep state of denial, but deep down, I kind of feel like they're not really dead. And just to clear some things up, yes, we were online friends, but we met once and called a few times, so I know at least they're real. We've known each other for about a year now. We used to talk every single day, but due to stress and personal issues, they kind of dwindled to every so often. And no, I don't really know any of his family members personally, but I know of a few specific and only a couple by name. And no, I haven't tried contacting them, and they haven't even like responded to my last message, where I'm essentially just trying to call their bluff and be like, hey, cut this crap out, basically saying that I wouldn't contact them again. It's all so confusing and very frustrating, and at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. If your friend really is alive and they fake their own death just to stop talking to you, that is like unbelievably horrible. I don't even know what to say there, because crap, dude, that is crazy. Like, in my opinion, if you really think they're faking it and you're like, dude, I kind of want to know what's going on, then for me personally, I would start contacting people and be like, do you know any information about this? Kind of like the cemetery situation where it's like, okay, we called the cemetery and it's like no one under that name was buried there. So to that extent, I think you might be right. Like, I really think your friend is faking their death instead of being like, hey, I don't want to be friends anymore. And my God, dude, that is so messed up. You do not deserve that. I also want you to like accept the fact that if this guy tries to come back and be like, oh, it was just a joke, I was joking around, please just promise me that you will not forgive him or be like, oh, it's okay, I'm glad I have my friend back. Because dude, this is not someone you want to be friends with. This is not a good person. This is an actual psychopath. Like, by the way, in case you're wondering, this is insane behavior. Like, it's crazy to pretend like you're dead just to avoid talking to somebody, instead of just being like, hey, I don't want to be friends anymore, I don't want to talk to you, please don't contact me. Like, that would have been simple. You don't just sit there and be like, oh yeah, he died, I'm one of his family members saying that he's buried at this cemetery, sorry about the bad news at, oh, what's that, 1 o'clock in the morning, my bad. Like, bro, this guy's texting at the time he gets off work, and he's trying to pretend like, oh yeah, I'm a family member, I'm not actually your friend from a year ago. Like, dude, that is some crazy behavior. So in my opinion, if that really is the case, where this guy's taking this toxic stance, then I don't think you should have any remorse about contacting his family or even his job and being like, is this guy dead? I was told that he's dead. Like, is he dead? Because you deserve the right to know. Like, at this point, you deserve to know whether it's true or not. Because in this situation, you really can have closure about what really happened. And I would much rather know the truth about the entire situation than be left in the dark by some toxic idiot. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for bringing down my coworkers with me after it became abundantly clear that I was getting punished for stuff they definitely were not getting punished for? Because now that we're all playing by the same rules at work, suddenly I'm the enemy at the restaurant we work at, and at this point I just don't know what else to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I recently started working at a restaurant where there is a dress code. Initially, I was pretty good about it, but if I'm frank, the shorts feel a bit too short for me and the shirt is sort of itchy. After a couple of weeks, I noticed that I was literally the only one wearing the uniform most of, if not all the time. So I just started to be more like relaxed with it until eventually I stopped altogether. Pretty soon though, my manager grilled me about it, so I made sure to always be wearing my outfit unless I forgot or was out of laundry. But meanwhile, everybody else remained in plain clothing. His attitude continued on with other stuff, mainly being late or asking for days off. But last month I had to ask for a Saturday off, all due to a family emergency, as well as next Wednesday and Saturday. I did so in front of a coworker, and although dismissive, he said to me, yeah, I get it, whatever. Well, that Saturday morning, I got spam called and texted by him. And when I came in on Sunday, he grilled me about not coming into work. And when I explained to him the situation, he just denied it and really looked at me and tried to say that I asked for next week and not that week. I even got my coworker who overheard to vouch for me, and you know what? He still got upset. So he instead said that it was my fault for not being specific enough and being disrespectful. Now, here's where I might be the jerk. I then got pretty mad and I said that he always berates me and he only disciplines me. He yells at me for being late, for calling off due to emergencies, and for forgetting my outfit. But he also never bats an eye when someone comes in a full hour later to opening shifts, or if they call off due to going to like a concert. And then on top of all of that, I pointed out that how out of everyone present, I was the only one in any kind of work attire, but he wasn't disciplining them. Well, in the end, that did work and the conversation went nowhere, but my coworkers who overheard it called me a jerk for bringing them down with me, and for apparently throwing them under the bus when they were not involved. And now I'm getting the silent treatment and being shunned. So seriously, was I really the jerk here? And if so, how could I have handled it better? Because honestly, I don't know what else to do here. Okay, in my opinion, if you're getting singled out at work and you are literally the scapegoat for your manager's problems, then congratulations, everybody gets to be in trouble. And yes, that includes the coworkers who are watching you get disciplined for no reason. Like, oh, suddenly we're friends just because you have to do stuff that I'm being forced to do? Like, no, I don't think so. Where was our friendship before where you could have like, oh, I don't know, stood up for me and said, hey, why are you treating him like that? Stop being so mean to my coworker. Because you were so happy previously to whistle past the graveyard and say nothing and still show up to work late and like call out for concerts. Meanwhile, I'm being dragged through the rocks and the gravel all because of like what? I didn't wear this stupid outfit that, by the way, no one else wears at work. Seriously, what are we doing here? There's some clear like favoritism and you're obviously being targeted. So honestly, at that point, if I'm going down, then yeah, so is everybody else. I could care less if I'm the jerk. Like, congratulations. Now you get to know exactly how I feel every single day at work. So no, you're not the jerk. Screw that. None of these people came to your defense, and honestly, they're only talking to you now because you said something. And if they really don't like the way they're getting treated, then they can look to the manager, because this is all going back to him and not you. Am I the jerk for wanting to cut off my friend after she accused my boyfriend of showing off just by paying for my birthday dinner? Because when she did that, it was incredibly awkward. And I'm now considering like not talking to her anymore, and at this point I don't know what else to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, it was my birthday and I wanted to celebrate it only with us girls. I have a boyfriend and we talked beforehand, and I told him that if he felt comfortable, he could come and sit with us. However, he said that we would celebrate together, just the two of us later, and that I should just enjoy my time with the girls separately. Now I said, of course, babe, no questions. Everything is completely fine. And so with that, the day finally came. There were 5 of us in total, including me. We ordered mains, appetizers, cocktails, and had a great time overall. When we were already supposed to leave, my boyfriend walked into the restaurant by himself. He said hello to everybody and asked me if we were finished. And I said, yes, we are done. And we were about to get ready now. He then said, okay, I'll go ahead and close out the check and you guys get ready. I'll carry the gifts and the flowers to the car. And I said, fine. And he went to pay the bill to the administrator. My friends and I then drank the last sips of our cocktails and started getting ready slowly. Now, just as we were leaving, my boyfriend came up to take the boxes. But then suddenly, one of my girlfriends said to him, "Oh, so did you just want to show off in front of us like that? Someone's a bit too cool." And I didn't really understand this, so I said to her, "Hey, let's step aside and talk for a second." And I really just didn't understand her question. Now, my boyfriend apparently either didn't hear this or it just passed him by completely, because in the end, he just took those boxes and carried them to the car, like he didn't even turn around. When we stepped aside, I asked her what she meant, and she said to me, "Listen, I have nothing against you or your man. The fact that he closes the check on your birthday is basically normal." But it's like, okay, why was it necessary to say this in front of all of us? I then told her that I didn't think it could hurt anyone. Like, I really didn't want to show off. Plus, they all know that my boyfriend closes checks for me in many places and always gives me gifts. We've been together for 3.5 years already. It all happens openly. So why is she saying such things? She then replied by saying, "Well, it's good that he didn't name the amount in front of us at least." And I then told her that she understood everything wrong and it honestly wasn't like that at all. She then admitted that for her, it looked exactly like that since she is single and doesn't have a boyfriend like him. And now I'm honestly overthinking her words. Like, it feels like she is just projecting her own loneliness and jealousy onto my relationship, and I'm honestly thinking about distancing myself and cutting back on our communication because her comment felt really toxic, and it seriously ruined my birthday mood. So am I the jerk for wanting to minimize contact with her over this? Because I really don't know what to do anymore. Yeah, I gotta be honest, this would be a deal breaker for me. Like, there's no way this is okay. Like, first of all, yeah, she's absolutely jealous of you. She hates the fact that your boyfriend likes you and actually wants to take care of you. And, you know, like, I don't know, spoil you on your birthday. Like, what's the deal here? Thank God this guy's oblivious and was like, okay, I'm gonna carry the boxes to the car and we're gonna move on with our lives. Because if someone said that to me, I absolutely would not have backed down. I would have been like, yeah, I'm gonna take care of my girlfriend on, oh, I don't know, her birthday. Why are you upset, lady? Go get a boyfriend. Like, what's the problem here? Like, it was completely unnecessary for her to walk up and be like, "Oh wow, you're paying for everything. Good for you. You just had to show off, didn't you?" And it's like, dude, nobody's showing off. This is just literally how their relationship is. He pays for stuff all the time. Like, this is really not that big of a deal. So no, you would not be the jerk for wanting to cut this friend out of your life and slowly move away from her. She sounds super toxic, and in my opinion, she is the kind of person who would try to like ruin your relationship. Just this nasty, spiteful person who's jealous of everybody. And if you're not careful, that kind of energy absolutely will rub off on you. And that sounds like a terrible time, and I would never want to put up with that. Am I overreacting by feeling hurt after my friend ended a 6-year friendship after I tried to set some personal boundaries with the way he was treating me? Because now, after it's all said and done, I feel very conflicted and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I was friends with a guy for about 6 years. He comes from a culture and personality background where punctuality and correctness are taken very seriously, and I genuinely try to be understanding about that. For example, even checking my phone briefly during dinner, literally for like maybe 5 seconds, would suddenly be seen as rude by him, and he would comment on it. He would also publicly correct me over small things. One recent example was at a cafe when he suddenly told me another woman was in front of me in line and that I had cut ahead, even though she had actually walked away and wasn't in line in the first place to look at coffee cups, and then later confirmed I was already there first. There was also a separate incident on an important occasion of mine where he rolled his eyes at another person about me in a way that genuinely felt disrespectful and dismissive. So for me, it wasn't just one correction. It became an overall feeling that I was being nitpicked or looked down on sometimes. I finally brought it up calmly and explained that some of these things were making me feel disrespected. I wasn't attacking him or calling him a bad person. In fact, throughout the entire conversation, I was trying to keep the peace and smooth things over. I'm trying to reach a peaceful resolve, and that I understood that some of this could be cultural or personality differences, and that I could understand his perspective. But also, I just hoped that he could also understand mine. When he was denying things or twisting things or reacting angrily, I just got upset too and had strong reactions. So I reacted too once I felt invalidated. But honestly, what really shocked me was his reaction. Instead of saying something like, "I didn't mean it that way," or trying to discuss it, he basically said that he wasn't going to change it. It's literally just how he is. If he thinks something is incorrect in public, he always is going to say it. He also became very defensive and denied or twisted details of things that had happened. And the whole time I had to justify myself and basically talk in in like an apologetic way when I'm the one facing the injustice. I kept trying to calm the situation down, and I even said I could accept that he might never fully change these habits. But then he said he felt cornered by the conversation. I also repeatedly told him that I didn't think he was a bad person at all, and that I didn't think the situation needed to become so black and white. I was basically trying to explain how certain things made me feel and hope that we could like understand each other better. We had a long discussion, and the cherry on the cake is when he corrected me in public. At that time, my phone rang and he actually told me, "You're not going to take that call right now, right?" Which I obviously wasn't. But when he said this, it really pissed me off because I had just said that correcting behavior bothers me, and I got really angry for a split second, and at that moment, he ended the friendship entirely right there. So am I overreacting by feeling hurt by this and feeling like this like 6-year friendship should not have escalated into ending over something so small? Because right now, I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, dude, you do not need to be friends with this person. First off, this guy probably doesn't even consider you a friend. He clearly gets off on having control and power over other people, which is probably the only reason he calls out behavior he doesn't like, or like, oh yeah, if something's not right, I'm just gonna say it. Because dude, what a toxic piece of garbage. You shouldn't like treat your friends like that and be like, oh yeah, my standards are now your standards. Also, big hint here, if someone says to you, oh, this is just the way I am and I'm not gonna change, that in my opinion is a huge red flag because anybody can change. It's not a personality quirk to be an insufferable loser all the time. If anything, it just means you're a terrible person to be around, and it makes me question how anybody could put up with your garbage. And also, who is this person to be chastising you in public and correcting you? Like, that is so weird, and there's no reason for that. So I would not mourn the loss of this friendship because it can hardly even be called a friendship in the first place. This guy sounded like a controlling jerk, and you definitely don't need that in your life. Am I the jerk for threatening to quit my job? All because I'm basically doing everything for less than half of what my boss makes. Because I'm super frustrated with being underpaid at my job. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. To start things off, I'm an assistant at a pretty well-known company, and I put in 12 hours of work a day. My title is assistant, but honestly, I'm running the department. I handle about 90% of the daily tasks, from client interactions, scheduling, reports, deadlines. I mean, you name it, I'm doing it. My boss, on the other hand, who's a guy in his late 30s, just shows up for the big meetings, takes all the credit, and rubber stamps things I've already prepared and worked on late into the night. He gets a pretty good salary, full benefits, bonuses, a company car allowance, like literally the whole package. Meanwhile, I'm severely underpaid, and that just doesn't feel right to me. After taxes, I take home less than half of what he does, like maybe around 40% of his take-home pay. I get basic health insurance and absolutely no perks. There's no bonus structure, and I don't get overtime pay, even though I regularly work 12-hour days and weekends when things get hectic. I've been here for almost 2 years. I've asked for a raise twice, and both times I was told the budget is tight and that they would revisit it in 6 months, but nothing ever changes. Well, last week during our quarterly review, I laid out everything I do. I presented the numbers and politely pointed out how ridiculous the pay disparity is given, especially considering the workload that I carry. My boss then got defensive and called me entry level and said he earned his compensation over time. And at this point, I finally lost it. I said to him, if this is how the company values me, then I'm going to have to start looking somewhere else. I can't keep doing a senior level job on an assistant salary. He then told me I was being dramatic and unprofessional for saying I was going to quit. And now a couple of coworkers who don't have anywhere near my workload are saying I crossed a line, and that threatening to leave makes me seem really entitled, especially since the company is popular and many people would jump at the chance to have their name on their resume. So am I the jerk for handling it the way that I did? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this was really a mistake. Like, seriously, this was not a good move. The first thing you need to remember with any job is that you are very replaceable, especially at what they consider an entry-level position. And I totally get it. You're doing a lot of work, you're working hard, you're not being compensated, and you're working 12-hour days. Like, trust me, I get it. That is exhausting. But if you really think for a second they couldn't replace you tomorrow, you're crazy. Anybody can be replaced, literally at the drop of a hat. And the fact that you're saying, oh, I can't do this, maybe I should quit my job and go work somewhere else. Like, brother, that's like the kiss of death. Your days are numbered, because now you've shown your boss that no, there's no longevity with this employee. They're not going to be happy until they're making my amount of money, even though that guy's probably been in that job for a long time. He earned that right to have that amount, and that's just the way it is. So yeah, in my opinion, this does make you seem really entitled. Like, your feelings are valid, and I think you're completely right. I think you should be paid more. But if you want to play the corporate ladder and like climb it in an effective way, then holy crap, make making threats about quitting your job just because you're not getting the money you want is not a good look. So in the meantime, I think it's probably better just to work the hours that you're given, don't work any more overtime, and just do your job as described. And then on the side, start looking for anything else. Because brother, you have put a target on your back. You unfortunately tried to posture yourself as someone who's high value in the company when in reality, they could replace you tomorrow with literally anybody else. And I'm not just saying that, like I've seen it happen and it could absolutely happen to you as well. Today, I got some petty revenge on my bully by doing the exact same book report that she did, only to prove that she never even read it, resulting in me getting the highest grade possible, whereas my bully ended up failing entirely, which honestly felt incredibly satisfying, especially when you consider how awful she treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had a bully who I will call Jackie, and she was a terrible person. We're talking beyond mean girl. She was one of those popular kids who would go out of her way to be deliberately cruel, and she loved to pick on me. We went to Catholic school, so we had the same classmates all 8 years. And she rode my bus, so there was literally no escaping her. On top of that, she was also dumb and very lazy. Now, I was an extremely shy and quiet kid, almost completely silent, and I used to read a lot. So I was reading several levels above my grade. Well, our 6th grade teacher, who I will call Sister Louise, assigned us a monthly book report. You could either hand in a written report or do a little craft thing like a diorama and a short presentation on top of it. The papers were due on Friday, but presentations were during our English period for the week preceding the Friday due dates. A couple of months into the school year at the beginning of the week, Jackie did her presentation of a book that was maybe a 4th grade reading level, but she had obviously never read the book or even the synopsis on the back cover. So her presentation was a story that she made up based on the picture on the front cover. Well, that same day, it seemed like she was especially horrible to me on the bus going home, and I was angry at that and her blatant cheating. Like, are you kidding me? She couldn't even bother to read like a little kid's chapter book. I had read that book a while ago, so I remember the story, but I also checked it out from the public library and I skimmed it just to refresh my memory of certain parts. I then did my very in-depth book report on that same book, pointing out some minute details and making sure that it was obviously not the plot Jackie had presented. Well, I ended up getting a 100% on that report, and Jackie only got 25%, because at least she had done the diorama, but that was not nearly enough. And at this point, her mother had to have a meeting with Sister Louise, and after that, Sister Louise then decided that we had to choose a book from the 6th grade reading list or get our book pre-approved. And you know what? A lot of the other kids were mad that they couldn't choose an easy book anymore, all because of Jackie. Now, Jackie was ranting and raving on the bus that she got caught because someone else did a report on the same book. But I don't think she ever even suspected me because I was the kid who always had my nose buried in far more advanced books. And I think they assumed that I had done a report on one of those. But Sister Louise knew exactly what I had done, because I had to get my next book approved, and she gave me a very pointed look and a smirk when she said, "Yes, this seems to be a book that is more in line with your reading level." And I would like to think that she was kind of proud that I fought back in the only way the quietest shy kid knew how to do. And honestly, overall, it was incredibly satisfying, and I can't think of a better person to get in trouble than Jackie. Okay, I love this so much because I was also one of those kids that got bullied, and I love the fact that you got back at her in a way that really hit home, because you doing the report very clearly proved that she didn't know what she was doing. So I love that for you. I think that's a great way to get revenge, and honestly, it sounds like this bully absolutely deserved it. My boss's entitled psycho wife treats me like garbage all the way up until the day that I quit, where she demanded that I delete my administration account that was incredibly important to the function of this company. But as a result, everything came tumbling down, as her job and reputation quite literally went down the drain. Here's what happened. Okay, so 15 years ago, I worked at a gas station as an opener. Because I was young and somewhat tech savvy, I was also the de facto IT for the 3 stores near me and had been heavily involved in setting up a new point of sale system for their 2 most successful stores when they were swapped from one gas brand to another. The company had also made me super admin on all registers just for ease of transition. And trust me, this will be important later on. Now, it's important to know that the owner's wife had been awful to me for the 2 years that I worked there. I got bumped to opener by her husband, and she hated having a man be an opener. Historically, every single opener was picked by her, and they were a woman. But her husband came and fired the previous opener for theft, while the 2 of us were swapping shifts. So I guess you could say I got a field promotion of sorts. The wife was constantly scrutinizing everything that I did, constantly calling me in the mornings to be rude and berate me for a bunch of minor things that I did wrong. She would say stuff like, "You use wet wipes on the area around the drink machine. I want you to use paper towels and spray." But the thing is that we were out of paper towels and the spray we had smelled like a hospital anyways. One time she even said, "I came in your store last night and there were 3 rows of Snapple apple, and you could probably increase sales by putting 1 or 2 of those rows to a different product." But it's like, are you kidding me right now? The Snapple fridge was 100% handled by the vendor, and we'd signed a contract that we wouldn't change the layout of the product. So basically, to summarize, she was awful to me because I was a guy. I also was the person who set up their point of sale system because I was somewhat tech savvy, and I was made a super admin on the registers that they had. Well, fast forward and I was desperately looking for work, which is when I found a temporary IT job, which then led to my current career. And since I got a new job offer, I gave her husband 2 weeks notice, but never told her, because I did my very best to avoid talking to her unless absolutely necessary. Well, when she did find out, it was Tuesday of my last week, and she legitimately lost her mind. She gave me a ton of stuff to do, and worked me to the bone until 2:00 p.m. on the last Friday I worked. But finally, the time to depart forever came along, and she personally came with an office worker and stood by me and asked me to delete my account from the register. Now, I knew I was a super admin, and I had been told that if I ever left, I need to convert the account. And she had been told about this, but had long forgotten it. So I just said, you know what, screw it. I complied, and then I went to the other store and did likewise while she watched. And this is where my revenge truly takes place. I then go about my life and I start my new job, and I end up about 3 weeks in when I get a frantic voicemail and like 20 text messages and calls from her. I called the office worker who stood over my shoulder with her, and I got the scoop. She basically couldn't change any prices at all when new beer or soda prices started rolling out, and her new opener had just let it all pile up because she didn't know how to do it, and they were going to have someone come in and train her. They had a bunch of items 5 or 10% below the price they were supposed to be at, and margins on cases of beer are low, and this was completely destroying their profits. Once I thought it over, I texted her and I said, "You asked me to do this, and it's on video, and I have 3 witnesses. Namely, the person she had me training, the person I swapped with, and the office worker who 2 weeks later had quit the company." I then found out later that they ended up spending $6,000 to get the company back out to fix the issue. And the boss's wife legitimately had a Facebook page at one point with people legitimately planning to crap on her grave when she eventually passed away. So I obviously was not the only person she was awful to, but I do feel like I got one up on her, and it honestly feels so good. Oh man, I love this so much. The fact that she's like, "Oh, you need to delete your account right now," not knowing exactly how much crap she's about to be in my opinion, is beautiful. That is some beautiful revenge that she literally did to herself. Like, that is everything you could possibly hope for. And I love the fact that you gave her absolutely no help at all. You told her to take a hike and accept the punishment. And with someone like your boss's wife acting like this towards you, in my opinion, she absolutely deserves to be taken down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I am incredibly depressed because I can't get past the fact that my best friend and my boyfriend of 7 years were very rude to me on our vacation, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, as the title suggests, I can't get past the fact that my best friend and my boyfriend of 7 years were rude to me on our vacation. So for a bit of context, me, my boyfriend, and my best friend and her husband went on a vacation for 15 days. It was one of my dream vacations, and I spent a lot of money on it, so my expectations were very high. On another note, my best friend really likes my boyfriend because she thinks he's a really nice guy, which I totally agree with. But she also wants me to end up with him. She tends to validate him a lot, even when I share with her some behaviors about him that make me sad sometimes. At our vacation, she of course continued to validate him, even in front of her husband, making comments such as, "Look at what he is doing for her, so lovely." However, she made a joke once towards me, which made me feel kind of sad. She said to me, "You don't deserve him." And then my boyfriend agreed, and that made me even sadder. Although she also makes fun of him sometimes, like she does with everyone else. Now, my boyfriend tends to be very caring towards others, and he seeks validation just like me, and we are both alike on this regard. However, since he is a little more passive, he tends to explode with me, and it happened on our vacation. For example, we were fighting about our suitcase, and the fact that I had more things than him in the suitcase that we were sharing, or even the fact that I did not want to buy a full day ticket for the metro, even though when I asked him about it, he agreed. But the worst was when he yelled at me in front of them because I was postponing going to the swimming pool to meet the other couple. And this is all because I was really tired. I cried a little during the night without him him noticing because I was trying to figure it out on my own. After a few days on the trip, I started to realize that he was more distant, like sitting near my best friend, talking with her and her husband more, leaving me a little bit out. I decided to talk to him about my feelings, and he admitted that he needs to be more assertive sometimes and to not explode. And he agreed with my best friend because they get along really well, and that she elevates him to a pedestal, which just makes me feel even worse and maybe a little bit jealous. So I returned to him that makes me feel worse because he prefers the validation of others and that she tends to do that with other people as well. In fact, she used to do that with my ex. I also talked with my best friend and she said she was sorry and that it was never intentional. She thinks she was trying to welcome him since he is the newest of the four of us. But right now I feel like crap, kind of disrespected, and I've been considering getting away from both of them because they made me feel kind of sad and betrayed in part. More than that, I fear going on vacation with them in the future because I fear all of these feelings may be coming back. What should I do? Honestly, the way your boyfriend's yelling at you in front of other people, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. Like, first of all, it kind of seems like you shouldn't have your boyfriend around your best friend in the first place, because regardless of what she's saying, in my opinion, the way she's acting is a little bit weird. You mean to tell me she's willingly like going along with this and being like, oh yeah, he's so great and perfect, but by the way, I want you to stay with him, don't worry about me. Like, that can work sometimes, but in my opinion, it just doesn't seem right. But overall, I don't like the fact that your boyfriend yelled at you, and I don't like the fact that your friend did nothing to try and like, I don't know, avoid the situation or even like stay out of it in general. And hopefully for the sake of you and your relationship, everything works out the way that it's meant to. My 14-year-old nephew is an absolute nightmare to be around, and even though I've tried to correct him in front of his parents, he still gets away with his garbage, leaving me in a situation that honestly I don't want to deal with. Here's what happened. Okay, so where do I even start with this? My nephew is the second child, and his older brother is so well behaved and regarded more favorably. So this 14-year-old thinks that being a contrarian makes him interesting. Within the last 6 years, he has punched me squarely down below 2 times at family events, and I think you know what I'm talking about. The first time he didn't get in any trouble, and my sister and her husband were mad at me for calling him an idiot as I was fighting the pain. The second time, which was a couple of years later, he was forced to apologize to me, but he refused and ultimately never got in trouble for that either. And it's unfortunate because he does have brief moments where he can be cool, but a few minutes later, he's shooting his 2000 Nerf darts at me when I tell him to stop, all while aiming at my face and again down below, or trying to throw a kickball down there, or he'll just gesture like he's about to punch me without doing it. So I have to brace as if I'm gonna get hit anytime that I'm around him, or if there's any kind of clear shot. And I feel like such a loser for having to do that around him. He has no regards for anything and especially is careless, rubbing up against my mom's beloved Christmas tree ornaments or other decorations. My parents don't really say anything as they try to remain neutral towards all of their kids, as well as towards their only 2 grandkids. And right now, I don't know what to do. His brief moments of coolness are completely overshadowed by how annoying he is to be around, and I just don't trust him at all. Worst of all, I can't exactly be a jerk to him when he's acting normal, because then I'm asking for trouble. I try to remove myself from his presence, but our family gatherings are in a very small house, so it's very difficult. I feel like if he does it a third time, I'm going to fight back. He knows he doesn't get in trouble for anything, and anytime he's reprimanded, it's basically ignored. I don't know what to do, and I know if I stop going to family things, my parents and siblings will not acknowledge my side of the problem. Talking it out doesn't seem realistic, and he's too young to call the police on him. And yeah, that's how much it's driving me insane. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, if he's actually 14 years old and he's punching you places he definitely should not be punching you, then you have every right to call the cops on him. Like, seriously, at this point, this kid's hitting you, and that is not okay. You've tried to talk it out with like the parents and figure out some kind of solution, and you've done everything you can, but you're like walking around paranoid. So honestly, if I was in your shoes and I can only speak to what I would do, I would absolutely get the police involved if these parents are not going to discipline their kid and control him from assaulting me. Because guess what? That really is assault. No matter how much he thinks it might be funny, he can't do that to people. And this is one of those scenarios where he can either learn the easy way or he can learn the hard way by the police showing up. My stepdad was incredibly petty and very nasty to me, especially when it came to me using the internet as a kid. So I decided to get some revenge by returning the favor when he was older and started living with me. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was 20 years old, I lived with my mom and stepdad in his mom's house. I paid $400 in rent and paid for my own groceries and covered one bill. And this was to set me up supposedly for being an adult. I also shared a room with my 18-year-old sister. Later, I shared a room with her fiance. She also paid $400. The room was very small with a small closet. My sister and I both were in college and worked full-time. My stepdad would get mad because we would be on the computer until early morning hours doing homework or on social media. So he got a device and it turned off the internet, which we paid for by the way, at 10 o'clock p.m. via some remote access. And if he got some kind of wild hair, he would just keep it off. Fast forward and now he lives with me and my mom because he lost his house with some get-rich-quick scheme. He then started staying up late watching TV. Now I pay for all the streaming that he watches and I pay for the internet. He pays for no bills other than rent. Well, I put a limit on the internet, so now he has to go to sleep at 12 o'clock and can't watch anything until after 6 o'clock in the morning. And funny enough, he's upset that his TV no longer works past 12 o'clock. Well, he doesn't know that I put a limit on that and his TV only, while the rest of the devices in the apartment work perfectly fine. But if there's anyone that deserves it, it definitely is my stepdad. Wow, that guy is a piece of work. Seriously, turning off the internet all because you're up late, probably quietly doing stuff like homework or just being on social media? Like seriously, that's so stupid. There's no reason to be treating anybody like that and to be so weird and controlling. It's not like it's hurting you or anybody else. He was just being a weirdo and that's not fair for you in the slightest. Now, in my opinion, I think setting the time limit to 10 o'clock would be really funny, but maybe it would be too on the nose for him to figure it out. But either way, I think this is some fantastic petty revenge because from the sounds of it, your stepdad absolutely deserves this. Am I the jerk for not paying my friend back after I sent the money to the wrong Cash App account after she gave me the wrong account name? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend let me borrow $150 2 weeks ago. She gave it to me in cash, so I was going to pay it back to her in cash. When I got paid this past Friday, I texted her letting her know I was going to drop it off to her on my way home from work. She then responded by saying to Cash App her instead, and then immediately followed up with her cash tag. Well, I sent it right away. But then about an hour later, she texted me asking if I could send it as soon as possible, but I replied saying that I did. She said she didn't get it, and at this point I started panicking, thinking that I sent it to the wrong person, but she responded before I did and said that she sent me the wrong username. And I just simply said, yikes, that's not good. Now, here's where things get really messy. She asked me if I could send it again, but I didn't have it. I'm struggling right now, hence the reason I had to borrow it in the first place. And even if I did have it, I don't feel like I should have to give it to her. If it was my mistake, I would have figured something out, but that is not the case here. But I didn't want to tell her that though. I didn't know how to respond, so I just said, well, let me call Cash App. But calling them was pointless because they pretty much said, well, good luck with that. I thought hard about what to say, but eventually I texted her back and I said, I called them and they said there's nothing they can do. I really don't have it, so I don't know what else to do. And she said okay. At this point, I haven't heard from her ever since then, and I figured that she was upset. I mean, anyone would be when they lose money, but this morning I found out that she really is pissed off at me. One of our mutual friends called me, and apparently my disgruntled friend believes that I should send her the money and figure out a way to get the other $150 back. But that's not gonna happen. Now, I want to call her, but I wanted to ask if I'm the jerk first, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, there is no way this is your fault. She sent you the wrong Cash App username. That is literally not your fault. You sent it off and said, okay, I sent it, thinking that she didn't have some kind of typo error of some kind. Like seriously, this could have been taken care of in cash, but she's like, no, send it Cash App instead. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified by saying, no, I can't send this to you and I really can't help you, I'm sorry. Because in my opinion, she's the one that messed up and not you. My parents are neglecting me financially while they're living lavish lives. And at this point, I'm desperate for work and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've talked before about struggling with money, but I wasn't entirely honest about my situation. My parents aren't struggling financially. They just refuse to help me out in any way, shape, or form. They buy themselves expensive things. They keep food hidden in their own personal fridges. And when I ask for even $1, they act like I'm asking for the world. I have no school supplies, barely any clothing fit me, and they refuse to support me in any way. I tried to take control of my life and make a babysitting flyer asking my mom to share it with her friends. But instead of helping, she shut me down and started bringing up an old situation with her friend, someone who completely took advantage of me. Now, here's what happened with her friend. Last year, my mom's friend did my hair for prom, which I was really grateful for. After that, she started using me for free labor, making me help with her events and her venues. Now, I never got paid and I was just trying to be nice. One summer, she took me to a wedding venue under the impression that I'd just be watching her do makeup for experience. But when I got there, she suddenly forced me to do makeup on actual clients and basically said that if I got nervous, she would slap me. At this point, I was anxious and overwhelmed, and instead of teaching me, she kept pushing me aside and making me feel worse. Despite that, I still ended up doing more makeup than she ever did, and she only did 2 people while I did 3. On top of that, I helped move things around the venue and did whatever was needed. Later on, she locked her keys in her car and just completely flipped out on me, blaming me for it, yelling at me me and making a whole scene. Meanwhile, the people at the venue were also treating me like trash. They were talking badly about me behind my back, and this was happening even while I was helping them. I then had a full-blown anxiety attack. I ran to the bathroom crying, and I called my mom for help, but she didn't care. She just told me to deal with it. After everything, this woman only paid me $13 while she kept most of the money. I later messaged her politely, thanking her for the opportunity, but also letting her know I didn't want to help anymore because of how she treated me. I also asked if she could send my payments through my mom. Well, instead of supporting me, my mom got angry and told me that I had embarrassed her. She completely dismissed the fact that this woman threatened me, took advantage of me, and underpaid me. And my sister was the one who told me I was right to walk away. Well, my mom is now using this situation as an excuse to not support my babysitting efforts. She doesn't help me with money, food, or anything, yet she's blocking me from making my own. I've tried everything to earn money, babysitting, dog walking, applying for jobs, but nothing is working out. And now I'm at the point where I'm starting to beg. I don't want to keep living like this, because right now I am desperate to become independent and get out of this situation. Okay, first of all, this is not your fault, and I really hope you're able to get out of that house, because your mom and her friend are horrible people. First of all, this friend of hers absolutely should have paid you more than $13. It sounds like you did literally everything around there, and nobody supported you at all. And also, the way your mom treats you at home is just so inappropriate. Like, these people live in the lap of luxury, meanwhile you're sitting there struggling every single day. So hopefully you're able to get out from underneath them sooner than later, because these people do not sound like good people in the slightest. Am I the jerk after I told my ex-husband that I will not relocate me and my son just so he can move in with his girlfriend of 3 months? Because right now he is really pissed off and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex-husband and I got divorced 5 years ago, and we have a split 50-50 custody of our 10-year-old son. We have always had an amazing co-parenting relationship, and I even considered us friends. Well, that all changed when he got a girlfriend 3 months ago. We have both dated and it's never been a problem, but this time it's different. I found out through a friend that he is dating a girl that he cheated on me with in the past. It stung a little, but I've moved on, and this was over a decade ago, so I let it go. We have always agreed that if we introduced our son to a partner, we would let each other know. So after I was dating my boyfriend for a year, I introduced him to our son, and I let my ex-husband know like we had agreed. The next week I go to our son's hockey game and I see his girlfriend. Not only has he not told me personally that he's dating her, he didn't tell me that she had met our son. After 1 month of dating, he introduced her to our son and never let me know. This caused a huge fight, and nothing has been the same ever since then. It's now been 3 months, and he calls me today asking if I would consider moving 3 hours away. He says the plan would be that him and our son will move in with his girlfriend, and I will get my own place nearby. And when he said that, I lost it. To preface, we live in our hometown. Our entire family is here, and this is the only town my son has ever known. So I said, absolutely not. I'm not leaving my home, my job, and my family so that you can play house with your girlfriend of 3 months. He's not allowed to relocate our son, by the way, so that's why he asked me to come too. Well, apparently he was so mad at me and couldn't even believe my reaction. He said he knew I always wanted to leave our hometown, so he didn't expect me to react negatively. Leaving my hometown does not mean moving 3 hours away with no friends or family to make his life more convenient just for his long-distance girlfriend that he barely knows. He said he thinks that this is what's best for our son and that he knows it would be hard to move away from family, but his girlfriend would provide him a loving and stable environment. He also doesn't think that this would be awful for a 10-year-old to have to move 3 hours away from everything he's ever known and also lose the life he had with his dad by moving in with a girl he's known for only, 2 months maybe? Well, I said I would not even consider this for a second, and that I'm not moving and neither is our son. So seriously, is this a completely delusional and inappropriate ask of him, or am I somehow the jerk? He has gaslit me for so long that sometimes I honestly just can't tell. What should I do? Okay, honestly, first and foremost, there's no way you're the jerk in this situation. Your ex-husband is completely wrong, and I think you're absolutely in the right. He literally wants to move in with a lady he's only known for 3 months and uproot this kid's life and your life in the process. He's not even beginning to think about you or your son in the slightest, and instead he's thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a great life for me and my new girlfriend. And that blows my mind because he really doesn't even know her yet. He's only known her for 3 months, if that? And he's trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, she's the one, this is the one I want to move in with. And let's say hypothetically you do uproot your life, leave your family and your job and all this other crap, and go somewhere that, guess what, you don't know anybody or anything. What if this relationship of his doesn't work out? Suddenly, you're the one that's also going to be on the hook, and that sounds like an absolute nightmare. So no, your ex-husband husband's an idiot for even suggesting that, because this move, in my opinion, is definitely not right. My entitled teacher shows some clear and obvious favoritism, as she is constantly giving me good grades while giving my friend horrible grades despite us turning in basically the same work. So me and my friend decided to get some revenge for not only exposing her for being a horrible teacher, but also by getting the school board to fire her on the spot. And I honestly have never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Many years ago in my senior year of high school, I was placed in an English class with a close friend of mine. We'll call him Jack for the sake of the story. And being in a class with Jack was extremely exciting. The only issue was that our teacher, who we'll call Mrs. Smith, was known for being absolutely horrible and targeting students that she didn't like. A few weeks into the class, Jack and I started to realize that he was getting lower grades on assignments where our work was practically identical. Since he was such a close friend, this really pissed me off, especially because it was obvious that Mrs. Smith wasn't even reading my assignments. I would consistently get 100%, while Jack's grades would come back anywhere from 60% to 80% for no apparent reason. I even tried to edit and revise his work before submitting it, thinking that maybe my teacher just liked my writing style compared to him. This, of course, changed nothing and cemented the fact that she gave him worse grades solely because she didn't like him. This continued to happen throughout the entire semester, and at this point, I had a 100% in the class, while Jack had somewhere around a C-. Since I was already guaranteed to get an A, I decided to do something pretty stupid in hindsight, but Jack and I still laugh about it to this day. One of our last assignments was to write a report on a movie of our own choosing, but instead of doing that, I decided to write out the lyrics of First Day Out by T. Grizzly repeatedly until it hit the 4-page requirement for the assignment. And if you're unfamiliar with the song, it is extremely vulgar and has no place in an academic environment. Well, unsurprisingly, when we got our assignments back, I received an A+ once again, while Jack got a B-. The next day, Jack and I went to the principal's office and presented our grades, giving concrete proof that Mrs. Smith unfairly graded students. Now, the principal was obviously shocked and said that they would look into it. A few weeks later, the semester was wrapping up, and we still hadn't heard anything about Mrs. Smith until my graduation counselor informed me that the school board had reviewed my assignment and were moving forward with firing her. Apparently, this was one of the many complaints she had received over the years, and my assignment was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, the next semester, Mrs. Smith had been replaced with a substitute teacher, and to my knowledge, she no longer works at the school. Okay, this is crazy because I cannot understand why teachers do this. Just because you like or dislike a student should not change the fact of whether or not they landed the grade they deserve. Like seriously, this guy was quoting lyrics from a vulgar song, and he somehow got an A+. Meanwhile, Jack is probably pulling his hair out trying to figure out like, wait, what am I doing wrong? How am I not getting an A? Like, are you kidding me right now? So seriously, I love the way you got this teacher fired, because if anybody deserved that, it absolutely was her. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents, after having disowned me for several years, have now reached out to me explaining that my mother has cancer, and after dealing with their awful treatment towards me for so many years, I'm hesitant to step back into their lives as I'm afraid that they're going to try and control mine all over again. Here's what happened. My parents disowned me last year, and it's now been a little over a year, and unfortunately, this isn't the first time. They also disowned me 2 years ago for a few months. They came back to talk to me, and at first, it seemed like things were smoothed over, but of course, they absolutely weren't. Now, a bit about my parents. My father mistreated my mother for most of my life. She was always in his shadow, and we lived in fear, but that was considered okay because we had enough money, we went on vacations, and had everything material that we needed. Besides being physically mistreated, I wasn't fully aware of how deep the psychological scars were until I met my long-term boyfriend. Being with him helped me realize just how problematic my parents' behavior towards me was. Daily control, constant belittling, treating me like I was 12 when I was actually 20 years old. For the first time, I started standing up for myself and behaving like an adult. At first, things were fine between them and my boyfriend, but that changed over time. My boyfriend and I went through rough patches, arguments, and even breakups, but we worked through them together. The first big issue arose when my boyfriend moved in with me in the city where we lived. This didn't align with my father's standards, meaning that we didn't ask for his permission in person at his house, even though we did call him. My boyfriend took over paying rent so that my parents wouldn't have any control over me, as I was still a student at the time. Later, we decided to leave the city and move to a more rural area where my boyfriend inherited a house that needed some work. We wanted to fix it up and make it our home, and that's when my parents disowned me again. Eventually, they came back, and after a lot of back and forth, we reconciled. But after some time, they started another cycle of manipulation and mistreatment, insulting where I lived, mocking me, saying I'd be stuck taking care of livestock, and I would become a dumb country girl, all despite my education. They called me worthless, said my boyfriend had me under his control, and that he probably had me on some kind of substance, and the list just goes on and on. During this, my boyfriend and I had a huge argument, and I decided to leave the house. There was a lot of yelling, but no violence. Well, my parents came to get me, and I moved back in with them, and they were overjoyed. Everything was fine for a while until my boyfriend reached out to my father, trying to explain that he was the one who suggested I leave because our living conditions were not ideal. We had no heating, no bathroom, etc., but my father refused to listen and got even angrier, saying my boyfriend had no right to call him. My boyfriend then called me and I went to see him. I wanted to bring him home so that we could all talk properly, but my father said my boyfriend could only kiss his feet before getting kicked out. He told me I had two choices: walk out the door and never return, or stay and block my boyfriend completely. So I panicked, had a breakdown, and blocked my boyfriend, who had been waiting outside for me. For a month, we had no contact. I moved in with my sister in a bigger town near where my boyfriend lived. One day, he came to her place just to hand me a letter and see me one last time, and that's when I unblocked him and we started talking occasionally. After a while, I realized I wanted to try again with him, but when I told my parents, they said they would disown me again. They claimed that he would hit me, throw me out like a dog, and that I would end up homeless. And then they started cursing me out, but I just stayed silent. Then I realized, wait a second, why do they think they can forbid a 23-year-old woman from seeing or reconciling with her partner? It was insane. Meanwhile, they either treated me like a princess or a servant. One moment they would say, you don't have to cook, you've cooked enough. And then they would say, well, why don't you cook? You're just sitting around. If I did end up cooking, they would say, oh, what, just for one meal? And if I cooked more, they would say, that's nothing. My sister started spying on me and gave me a cleaning schedule, and my parents showed up unannounced twice a week. That's when I fully realized how sick our relationship was, how it wasn't normal for someone to control a grown woman's life. What if I wanted to move or change jobs? Would they think they had the right to decide for me? Just like my whole childhood, where I lived in their shadow, afraid to even breathe differently for fear of their reaction. So I told them I was getting back together with him. Their response was to say, you'll only enter this house again in a coffin or in a stretcher. They then called me an addict, they said I'm mentally ill, and cursed everything that they ever gave me, and told me that their doors were closed forever, even if my boyfriend hurt me or threw me out on the street. But I just simply said okay. Within days, I moved out completely, and it was then that they told everybody not to talk to me. They bothered my grandparents, checked their phones, monitored their messages, and yelled at them. My aunts eventually reached out, and when I saw my mother at a family wedding, I nodded at her, but she ignored me completely. My sister also cut off contact because I told her I wouldn't call her just to avoid being bothered, but that I'd always answer if she called me. And the one time that she called me, I missed her call and she never called again. My grandparents secretly came to see me, but later my father found out because he has people in the village watching me. But with all that in mind, this is where the twist comes into play. My mother has cancer. She had her uterus removed and she's now recovering. My grandparents are pushing for us to reconcile, and they accidentally gave her my new phone number. My parents are also now claiming they have no issue with my boyfriend anymore. I understand why my grandparents want peace, but I can't erase everything that they said to me, or the year I spent completely alone. During this time, my boyfriend and I have struggled with rising costs and inflation, but we made our choice and that's fine. But still, every time I think of my parents, I feel nothing but anger. A few days ago, my mother messaged me. She said to me, I think enough time has passed and it would be nice to meet and talk. I've been at home resting, so why not? If you feel the same, let me know. I replied by saying, I heard what happened and I hope you recover soon. If you want to talk, we can, but I don't see where that conversation would lead. Time alone will not erase everything that was said to me without a good reason. She responded by saying, it wasn't right on either side. If you want to talk, let me know. And that response infuriated me. I haven't replied in 10 days. I never insulted them or responded to any of their words, but they trashed my name and disrespected me entirely. Now, I thought that was the end of it, but today she messaged me again, asking to meet in a nearby town. My boyfriend says I should go since it can't get any worse, and I am considering it just to put an end to their constant calls and messages and to hear what they have to say. But the idea makes me deeply uncomfortable and very anxious. I avoid conflict and I don't know how to handle it. I'm afraid they'll manipulate me again and I will end up back in the same cycle. So what do you think? I know this is a lot and you don't have the full picture, but please help me gain some kind of perspective. Everyone around me just says do what you think is right, or just ask me if I could live with never seeing them again if something happened to them. But I don't even know how to deal with what's happening now, let alone any hypothetical future situation. I feel lost and overwhelmed. It seems so unfair that everyone expects me to make the effort, to visit, to talk, to lower my pride. cried, when in the end, I was the only one who was hurt by them, because right now I really don't know what to do. Honestly, I think considering the circumstances, I can only speak to what I would do, and I know in my situation, I would not be very open to talking to them, especially after the way they treated you. Like seriously, these people have been trying to control your life from the very beginning, and they go through these same phases where they're like, oh yeah, you're doing fine, and then suddenly when you do something that they don't explicitly like, they turn around and act like this is the end of the world. Like they literally disowned you twice already. Who's to say they wouldn't do that a third time the second you step back into their life? So for me, I would weigh things out and be like, okay, is it worth it in the end to talk to these people, or am I just gonna be happier by avoiding them and moving on? Because as far as I'm concerned, the way they're talking to you and the way they've treated you in the past is something that you absolutely need to be aware of. Because in my opinion, it seems like this cycle is starting all over again, and you very easily could be walking right back into their grasp. Am I the jerk for leaning on a nearby wall after being denied use of gym equipment by a woman doing supersets? Because after I asked her if I could work in, she said that I couldn't and that I couldn't be in her space in a public gym. And I'm honestly so annoyed by this interaction that I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my apartment building has a small exercise area, including a cable crossover machine, an adjustable bench, some dumbbells, some treadmills, and a small side room for yoga or other bodyweight or kettlebell exercises. The gym was empty this morning, except for one woman doing row exercises on the cable crossover machine, and I noticed that she had placed her phone next to the bench with a couple of dumbbells. For context, I'm a fairly tall guy, and she's kind of short, and I specify this because it seems like that plays into the dynamic from her perspective. So I ask her, can I use that bench? But she responds by saying, no, I'm doing supersets. Now I was a bit taken aback. There is room for 2, maybe 3 people in the resistance and weight training area, and she was using every piece of equipment. Not sure what to do, I lean on a nearby wall and I start looking at my phone. Now I'm a bit upset, and I look up every so often to see when she'll be gone. She then takes out her earphones and says something to the effect of, are you just going to stand there? And then we get into a big argument. I say something to the effect of, what else am I supposed to do? You won't let me work in. She then says to me, I don't want you in my space, go do something else. But I replied by saying, oh, so I can't do pull-ups on the cable crossover while you're using the bench? She then says back to me, no, I don't want you in my space. But I replied by saying, well, that's just bad etiquette. It then continues like this for a bit, and I accuse her of being rude, but she accuses me of using my male privilege. Eventually, she finishes her set and then she leaves. In every single gym I've worked out at, it would be considered rude to bogart multiple pieces of equipment while others have to wait. I lived abroad for years before this, but is this still the case in the United States gym culture? Am I the jerk for leaning on a nearby wall and just waiting, rather than going and stretching or running on the treadmill? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I can confidently say that the lady in this story is super entitled and very rude. Seriously, you can't just take up a bunch of space and be like, no, I don't want you near me, back off. Like, this is not a private gym. This is a place that anybody in the apartment building can go to and work out. So for her to be like, no, you can't be over here, that's not allowed, while also making a big fuss over you standing there and just waiting for this idiot to be done, like, that is so weird and honestly so toxic. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and in my opinion, you were completely in the right for standing there and waiting for this idiot to stop. My girlfriend has been secretly visiting my awful parents who mistreated me my entire childhood. And after I found out about this, I honestly felt like my whole world crumbled down, as I am now reconsidering my entire relationship, leaving me in a spot where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I did not have an easy time growing up. My childhood was so messed up that I sort of just put it all in a mental box, and I left it at that. Needless to say, I left my parents as soon as I could, and then went no contact and haven't seen them ever since then. There are several reasons I went no contact, and my girlfriend seemed understanding enough when I told her that I didn't even want to tell my parents about their grandson. I don't want my son around these people, I don't want my girlfriend around these people, and above all, I would never leave any child alone around these people. My girlfriend doesn't know about what exactly my father did to me and my sister, but I also feel like she doesn't have to know in order to respect my wishes. Well, yesterday, my sister texted me a picture of our parents' dog, and in the background were my son's shoes. Our mother uploaded it on Facebook, where I have them blocked, and while my sister recognized the shoes, she was mainly concerned about them even having a kid over there. My girlfriend and I both work. She only works part-time, but we always have someone to watch our child, either my sister or my girlfriend's family. So it's not like she had to bring him there to have someone watch him, meaning that this was a deliberate decision that she should have made with me. I talked to my son about it, and it turns out he's been there several times unsupervised alone with my father. Apparently nothing happened, but I was understandably angry and confronted my girlfriend as soon as she got back home, which of course led to a huge fight. She left crying and went to her parents' house, and later her mother came to pick up my son, which I refused, which then led to another fight with her mom as well. My girlfriend then texted me, asking to talk later today, and I know I can't keep my son from her, and I definitely don't want to, but I do not want to go into our conversation unprepared, so honestly, any advice is welcome. I also feel betrayed and still very angry, and I'm honestly ready to break up over this, but my son is very upset and anxious because he heard our fight, and right now I'm just completely at a loss and I don't know how to handle this situation. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to their situation. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to thank you all for the comments and the input. I didn't feel like I could even think when I made my initial post, so it was good getting some different perspectives. Now, I did write that my girlfriend and I would talk that same day that I posted, but we didn't because I needed to sort myself out, and I think she did too. She's been avoiding me ever since and requested we talk at her parents' place, but I didn't want that, so we didn't get to talk until yesterday while my son was at my sister's. Apparently in September last year, my mother reached out to my girlfriend on Facebook asking how me and my son were doing. My mother is a very intelligent woman, but also highly manipulative. She convinced my girlfriend to visit them because my father is ill. My girlfriend said that she didn't tell me because she knew I would say no, and she wanted to see what kind of people my parents were. She brought our son but didn't leave him alone at first, but their visits got fairly regular, and she became comfortable with leaving him with my parents. Now he seemed fine, and he even seemed to like it there, so she didn't feel like he was in any kind of danger. The first time she left my son fully alone was when she went Christmas shopping. I think from what I had told her about my childhood home, she expected a house of nightmares, but according to her, the place was clean and fixed up. The dog was healthy and my parents were nice. The thing is that she knew something happened to my sister. I never told her what happened to me, which I now see I probably should have, but she doesn't see terrible people like them everywhere like I do. And when my son didn't report anything negative, she saw no issue taking him and leaving him there again. So it's pretty clear to me that she doesn't know anything about being mistreated as a kid, or even what to look out for. I don't understand how she could think that she'd be able to spot any of the signs with this little knowledge. My father has been in contact with children most of my life, and while I don't know if he's done anything to them, my sister always said that he knew how to make children feel at ease. Both of my parents are very methodical and calculating, so I don't blame her for believing them, but I blame her for not discussing this with me. She went to visit them after talking to my mother for a few days, and meanwhile, I've lived there for 17 years, and somehow she thought that she knew better than me. Even when I told her some details about my childhood, she still tried to push for supervised visits, saying my father was ill, and my son had every right to meet his grandparents, which I don't agree with at all. The thought of children being around these people makes me sick, but she seems reluctant to agree to officially limit their visitation rights. I would need her agreement, however, unless I want a court case of some kind. I also tried to explain why this felt like such a betrayal, because this is not just about putting my son in danger, it's also about her going behind my back for months. I mean, what else would she be capable of? Then she told my son to keep the visits a secret, which is exactly what people who mistreat kids would say. Now, she did apologize, saying that she made an honest mistake and feels like I'm blowing this out of proportion and that her parents think so too. Besides, our son is fine, and I shouldn't have raised my voice at her mother and should be more grateful for what her parents have done for me and us over the years, which by the way I am. I do owe them, sure, but that doesn't mean that they can overrule my parenting decisions or get so involved. I feel like neither her nor her parents trust me or take me seriously, and it's so frustrating when the mother of your son is pretty much actively working against you. I don't think she can even grasp how terrified I was when I talked to my son about their visits. Again, I know it's my fault for not telling her everything, but I never thought she would do something like that. My past never really affected me much anyways. I never felt like there was ever a reason for her to know all the details. Honestly, I don't know if anything is resolved. I know why she made the choices she made, but I don't think she understands why I was and still am upset. She left after bringing up her mother because I got angry, and I know I shouldn't have, but I revealed something so big and I just don't get taken seriously. I want us to work, and she agreed that it would take a lot of work to get back to before all of this, which I'm not sure is even possible. I apparently deeply upset her, and I scared our son, and I angered her family, and part of that is true. I never wanted to fight in front of my son. I think for me emotionally, all feelings for her vanished the moment I found out, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I wish we could make it work for his sake, but I don't want him to grow up with dysfunctional parents or with his parents fighting every day. So if this doesn't work out, I will need to get a lawyer. I'm willing to put in the work needed for us to stay together, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. We were so young when we started dating and had our son, and I'm not sure if I ever thought about us staying together forever. I only stayed because I was living with them, and then I stayed because I didn't want to be an awful teenage dad, abandoning my son and the girl that I loved, because I really did love her, I think. Also, I am partially responsible for her being pregnant in the first place. As for my son, I have talked a lot to him these past few days, and I've taught him about boundaries and what's okay and what isn't. So I just hope it's true that nothing happened. He has also apparently not seen anything inappropriate. Our fight did get to him though, and he knows I was sad and knows his mom is too. And I hope him and I talked it out enough, and that my girlfriend gets to talk about this with him too. We might just sit down with him or something, but honestly, I need to figure this out because right now I don't know what to do. Wow, this is a big one. Like seriously, this is really messed up, and I absolutely side with the original poster. Like seriously, what was the girlfriend thinking? She had no right to bring these people back into the original poster's life, especially when he said, hey, we've gone no contact and I don't want to deal with them for like some really bad reasons. Like if I had a significant other who said that, I would be like, hey, I hear you loud and clear, don't even worry about it. I will never contact them, we will have a happy life without those people involved. Because my God, this is so messed up. So honestly, I think you're going about this in the best way you possibly could, because I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be very pissed off. And hopefully for the sake of your son, all of this works out in his favor, because he does not deserve to be stuck in the middle of all of this. An entitled Karen freaks out on me in the worst case of road rage I've ever seen in my life. So I decided to get some revenge by humiliating her at her job in front of all of her coworkers. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I live in the country. I was driving my baby to daycare early one beautiful spring morning in 2023, and the daycare is located near the town center in a fancy little village. There is a large, widely spaced four-way stop sign at the village entrance, about half a mile from the daycare, and most of the time it's very quiet and never really busy. On said morning, I was talking to my baby about the day. I went through the stop intersection, and shortly thereafter, I noticed a car tailgating me very aggressively and honking their horn. Now this is while we're going through a residential village at like 20 miles an hour, but I just brushed it off, thinking the person was just in a rush or had a bad morning of some kind. I thought nothing of it because I was about to get out of their way by pulling into the daycare's driveway. Well, suddenly they turned in after me, so I got a little bit scared. But once they pulled in next to me, that's when I really got scared. I unbuckle my baby, talking to her calmly because I don't know what's about to happen, when suddenly this entitled Karen jumps out of her car and starts screaming at me at full volume. Mind you, it's 7:45 in the morning on a beautiful day, so I was so surprised. Apparently, I cut her off at the four-way stop sign, and I replied by saying, oh, so that's why you were tailgating me, which is an inflammatory remark, I guess, but honestly, I had just figured it out, and I was congratulating myself. I didn't intend to be rude. I immediately apologized, saying I didn't realize, but she kept screaming at me in front of my baby, and she literally wouldn't stop. I was completely confused as to why she was so upset. I will admit that I'm not a morning person, so I wasn't firing on all cylinders. I then apologized a few more times, and then I said, it's a beautiful day, let's just move on. I then turned my back on her and I went inside, which I guess was the wrong choice to make. Well, it turns out she was another parent at the daycare, and she went to the center director to complain about my driving, saying that I made it unsafe for her. I then got called in and they warned me to drive safer, and I was so mad. She went out of her way to make my life harder at my kid's school, so I knew that I would never forget that lady's face. Well, fast forward 2 years, and I have a doctor's appointment in the same town, and when I walk into the office, guess who's in the receptionist area? Yeah, it's the lady that screamed at me. She knew too because she wouldn't make any eye contact. I took the clipboard and I seethed for a little bit while I filled it out, trying to talk myself down, but that simply didn't work. So it turns out I'm incredibly petty because I definitely handed the clipboard back to her, and I said loudly for the whole office to hear, oh, I know you. Do you remember that one time when you screamed at me at 7:45 in the morning, all about a stop sign? I know I cut you off by accident, but I apologized, and it was super lame of you to scream at me in our kids' school parking lot about it. That's what pathetic people do. Well, the whole time I did this lady just stared at her keyboard. Her coworker didn't though, and neither did the other people in the waiting room. They absolutely loved it, and honestly, so did I. Man, I love it when there's like a long play of some kind of like petty revenge, because the lady in the story who screamed at the original poster absolutely had it coming. Listen, in my opinion, it is just not safe out there to approach someone about some kind of road rage incident. It really could end poorly and somebody could get hurt or worse, especially in today's day and age. Like honestly, people are crazy out there. Who knows who you're actually approaching on the street, let alone at a daycare of all places. But good for you for making this lady know exactly how rude she was being, even though you had to do it a few years later, because the way she treated you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I recently found out that my family had been been bullying my fiance for years, and now after it got exposed in front of the entire family, they are now begging for my forgiveness. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I have been dating for 6 years. We had met each other's families several times throughout our relationship, and I thought that everything was going well on both ends. His mom and I loved each other's company, and I thought my family liked my fiance until recently. He had proposed to me 3 months ago, and we immediately started planning our wedding. I wanted to organize a dinner with his mom and my family, but my fiance strongly opposed. And this shocked me because he's usually so soft-spoken. I didn't push any further because he didn't feel like talking about it, and we planned to tell both of them separately. We invited my parents and siblings to my house last week, and we told them about the proposal. Well, my family was silent, with my mom breaking the silence by asking me to go to another room so that they could talk. We then had a small argument, and that's when I found out that my family didn't approve of my fiance. She said they didn't say anything to me until now because they thought I would break up with him. When I asked why, she called him womanish and too feminine. I yelled at her and she yelled back, but we stopped when we heard fighting in the dining room. When I ran in, I saw my fiance punching my dad over and over, while my brothers and sisters tried to pull him off. I then helped my siblings pull my fiance off, and I tried to calm him and my dad down. My dad and siblings told me that he just started attacking my dad out of nowhere, but my fiance said that my dad had called him the F slur, you know, the one for gay men, and then made a joke of my fiance's dead father. Now, I believe my fiance, and I told them what my mom had said. A bigger argument broke out, and I kicked them out of my house. I talked with my fiance, and he said this wasn't the first time that my family insulted him. He told me that they would belittle him for his feminine hobbies and would poke fun at his lower paying job. He said that when we would go to my family, they would wait until I wasn't around to tell him those things, and that he just ignored it up until this point. The next morning, I called my family, and I told them about everything I found out. Now, they tried denying it, but my second oldest brother didn't seem to care and said that they did it to prove that there was something wrong with him. I then hung up the phone and I ignored their efforts to reach me afterwards. They apologized and said that they were trying to protect me. They then invited me to family counseling and said that they would try and be better. They even tried apologizing to my fiance, but he didn't accept it. Now, I want to believe their apologies and let them back into my life, but I also don't want to hurt my fiance. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be completely honest. Either you're completely oblivious to how your fiance is actually feeling and the way he's being treated by your family, or your fiance is a complete psychopath who snapped all of a sudden for no reason. Like, I'm willing to bet that your fiance actually was being made fun of by your family, and you either turned a blind eye to it or you just were not paying attention. And both of those scenarios are really awful for your fiance, because you said it yourself. Him freaking out and punching your dad in the face is so out of character for him, it's honestly not even funny. So in my mind, someone like that is not going to get pushed to the brink of their sanity unless something seriously wrong has been going on. So not only is your entire family awful and so toxic, but also it seems like everybody across the board sucks at communicating. And I'm talking about you, your fiance, and the rest of your family. Allegedly, this has been going on for years, and your fiance didn't say anything about it. Like, if I had a partner whose family was doing that to me, the first second that happened, I would have gone to my fiance and been like, hey, wait a second. These people are being really mean to me. You need to make this stop. I wouldn't put up with it for several years and not say anything. Also, your family is pretty awful as well. They literally have been trashing this guy to his face while you're not around, and then have decided not to say anything, and only once you've gotten engaged are they like, okay, we wanted to talk to you about this. And it's like, no, you didn't. You didn't actually care at all. You just wanted to put my fiance down, and that's it. So truly, everybody across the board in this story really sucks, and hopefully this works out for you guys in some kind of way. Because in my opinion, your fiance does not deserve this level of negligence or verbal mistreatment, because the way he's been treated is absolutely unacceptable. My toxic assistant manager treated me and the rest of my coworkers like crap, even going as far as telling me to shut my mouth and do as I'm told. So one day I decided to maliciously comply by following her orders exactly as described, and thus proving once and for all how stupid she truly was. Here's what happened. When I was in college, I worked as a baker in a well-known regional bagel and sandwich chain. At some point, an assistant manager transferred to my store who was the stereotypical petty, power-tripping, ridiculous manager that you would find in this type of job. Her specialty was yelling at and berating employees in front of customers, and I will never not believe that she enjoyed publicly humiliating people. It was tolerable all the way until I agreed to cover a shift at the store she transferred from. Someone there asked me what I thought of her, and I thought I was careful, as I just commented that she had very high expectations, which were very hard for some people to meet, and that was the understatement of the year. Well, this lovely person passed this back to her, which put me at the top of her list. What followed was a series of write-ups for egregious violations, like missing some seeds when mopping the floor, or not emptying a garbage can that had a single paper towel in it. Luckily for me, I was one of the few people there certified to run the ovens. My opportunity for malicious compliance came one Saturday lunchtime when a charter bus pulled up to our store. Now, I had seen this before, and I knew that a bus full of people buying sandwiches is equivalent to 2 to 3 people bringing bagels to work, which is barely a blip compared to morning rush. I went to the counter to help, and Miss Assistant Manager yells at me to get back into the kitchen and start baking more. I tried to tell her we were fine, but as soon as I opened my mouth, she yelled at me and said, "Shut your mouth, do what I told you, and don't stop baking until I say stop." Now, 2 important things to know here. First of all, when I took my certification test, they told me I passed it with the second fastest time on record for the local franchise. The second thing is that the ovens were adjustable. You could turn up the heat to speed up the cooking process. I went back to the baking area and I cranked up the oven and I baked as fast as I possibly could. The ovens had 8 shelves holding about 48 bagels each. Eventually, I had them all filled up and was only slowed down by how fast I could cook them and how fast I could send them up front. Miss Assistant Manager was down at the register this entire time and was not paying attention to the stock levels in the bagel bins, but I kept bringing out shelf after shelf. At one point, the bins were overflowing, so I had to start putting them in extra bins that we had in the back, and once those were full, I started putting them in and on metal trays. The crowd finally died down, and Miss Assistant Manager finally looks at the bagel bins and realizes she never told me to stop. She then asked me if there was anything still baking, and I informed her that every shelf was full. She then lost it and started yelling that I was getting fired until multiple people pointed out that I just did exactly what she asked. The store manager ended up coming in, and pretty much everyone told them the exact same story. Mrs. Assistant Manager had to bag up the mountains of excess bagels and then drive them to all the other stores in the area just so they wouldn't go to waste. Even after that, we still exceeded the allowed wastage for the day, and she was the one that got reprimanded. Now, she still yelled at everyone after that, but she was, at the very least, a bit more careful with her wording. Yeah, I can't stand managers who act like that, who come in with this awful attitude and treat you and the rest of the employees like garbage. Like, seriously, that's so rude, it's not even fair. And the way she talked to you, like, my God. Anyone who would tell me to shut my mouth and do what I'm told, that's the second we're gonna have problems. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. And this is literally just a bagel and sandwich shop. Like, it's not that important of a job. So for her to act like this is honestly just some weird power trip. But overall, I love the way you handle this, because I think in a roundabout way, you showed this lady exactly how stupid she was acting. An entitled jerk screams at me and the rest of my staff after he doesn't get exactly what he wants, shouting that he wants his accounts canceled right now as he's not getting the service that he demands. So I decide to maliciously comply by doing exactly that and canceling all of his accounts, resulting in one of the biggest blowups I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work as a support manager for a company that sells credit card readers and other services for processing money. Our story starts with a phone call that one of our newest staff members received. The caller does not introduce themselves and instead loudly demands to speak to no less than the CEO of the company and will not give any information aside from his repeated demands and some indirect swearing. Normally, this would earn them a terminated call, but I want to know who has the guts to scream at my staff, so I have him transferred over. Having had some of these calls before, I introduce myself with a very fancy title and ensure the caller that whatever his support needs are, I can handle them without any kind of issue. The CEO is busy at the moment, and I'm the next person in line in the support organization. Now, this is not entirely true, but it really works to calm people down and get them to tell me what is actually the problem. Now, the caller in this story is called Steve, and not just any Steve, mind you, but Steve, the owner of Steve's Cafe. And not just one Steve's Cafe, mind you, but the owner of all 7 of Steve's Cafe. Steve is apparently offended that he was given to me and not the CEO like he demanded. He is the owner, you see, and he needs to talk to the owner and not me. Because, you know, I don't own 7 cafes, and I certainly don't own my company. So I just simply cannot understand Steve's needs and can't make the hard choices he needs made. But I again assure him that I do have the position and authority to do anything he requires. I am the manager of the support department. I can make any changes that he requires. I can set up new accounts or order new devices, anything that he might need. He only needs to tell me his problem and I can provide the solution. I will support him. Well, his next words are immediate and aggressive. Can you cancel my accounts? Well, yes, I can. I inform him that we need a written request to cancel, and I also try to inquire why he needs to cancel his accounts. This is a standard procedure. If he wants to cancel his accounts, then we close his accounts, but any feedback is also useful. Is he leaving because our product was bad, because our service was bad, or because he found a better deal? But before I can even get a few words out of him, he shouts again, "Have the CEO call me. He has my number." And then he disconnects the call. Well, I report this up the chain, and I get back that no email means no cancellation, but still the bosses need to know. First thing the next morning, I get invited to an emergency meeting by the CEO, as well as a few other important people. We go over what happened, and then I'm shown an email. Steve managed to find the CEO's internal email address and sent him an email complaining about one of his 7 stores having a horrible time with the product. He is demanding no less than the cancellation of all of his accounts and a refund for 3 months of payments he has made for each, as the product is totally unusable. I checked the logs and the problem location does indeed have a problem. That started yesterday morning. They are not down, but they are having a bad time. There are no emails or calls informing us, just the screaming cancellation request. I sent over the call logs and we listened to Steve scream, as well as curse at the support agent, before he got sent over to me. And then I hear the words that cue my malicious compliance: cancel my accounts. The meeting goes quiet. The CEO has spoken, and we cancel all 7 accounts and shut down services. They then start their day with devices that do not work. But once the calls come in, the CEO makes another decision. They say that the account is canceled and that we need to follow procedure. So each manager calls me frantically, explaining that nothing is working, but the staff apologetically tell them that their account was canceled per their owner's email and that we can no longer provide any support. Shortly thereafter, the owner calls in and once again is screaming to turn them back on, uncancel them this instant, get the devices working because he is losing money. I check with the CEO, and after receiving a nod, I say, well, per your request made over the phone yesterday and your email this morning, your accounts have been canceled. At this point, Steve just gets madder and says he didn't mean to actually cancel them. He just wanted to let us know what would happen if we didn't fix his issue. He then continues to yell. I let the CEO know, and at his request, I transfer Steve to his office phone. Now, I wish there was a satisfying ending to this story, but Steve and our boss did talk it over. Steve was informed that his behavior was unacceptable, and Steve admitted that he was expecting expedited service and possibly a discount when he threatened to cancel, and basically said he didn't really want to cancel his accounts. He just wanted support to take him seriously and transfer him up the chain so that he could get faster, better service. Now, obviously, there was no real apology, though both I and the initial support agent were told that Steve would behave himself from now on and to report if he didn't. Services were then resumed and all 7 locations were opened a bit late. The one location that did have issues yesterday got on the phone with a support agent and were sorted out in a reasonable amount of time, and all is right in heaven and earth. But I do hope Steve learned that threatening to cancel your account sometimes leads to you actually getting your account canceled and not some kind of discount like you were expecting in the beginning. Okay, I'm gonna say what we're all thinking. I hate Steve and I hate the CEO. I hate Steve because he actually got away with treating the staff like garbage, and I hate the CEO because he literally let this slide. That guy is a massive piece of crap, and I can't believe he allowed that to happen. Seriously, you let your staff get treated like garbage, and you allowed this guy to come back in as some kind of client of yours? Like, do you not care about the well-being of the people who are literally taking care of your business? Like, that is disgusting. I can't stand managers who act like that, or customers who try to be like, oh, you should cancel my accounts, I can't stand you, only to then freak out and be like, well, I didn't actually mean it. Why'd you actually think I was serious? You know, it's not like you were screaming and like cursing on the phone at people. That wouldn't be a good indicator that you're pissed off and you want to cancel your service. It's like, come on, like that is so weird and so dumb, in my opinion, and I really think this is true. The way you treat people in customer service, whether you're the owner or a customer of some kind, absolutely reflects the kind of person you are on the inside. And trust me, I get it. I know that everybody has a bad customer service experience where the person trying to serve you is not doing a good job and they really suck at their job. They're lazy, they don't care, and they're just not doing what they need to do. But I would seriously argue that that's just an outlier situation and that most people just want to do their job, get money, and go home. Like at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make rent. And if you treat me with respect, I guarantee you will get it back. That's my philosophy at least. Maybe you feel differently. And if you do, please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. But overall, I think Steve sucks and so does the CEO. And the fact that this situation didn't result in Steve getting banned, in my opinion, is incredibly upsetting. Am I the jerk for walking away from a friend-owned business after they literally tried to take advantage of my work while giving me no respect and no reward for my efforts? Because right now they're saying I'm a bad friend, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been friends with someone for a while now, and they came up with an idea for an app and asked me to develop it. They are handling the business side of things, while I'm responsible for the entire technical department. At first, I was willing to help out, but things quickly started to feel off when we discussed how we would split the rewards. The situation became really frustrating when they suggested I would only receive a small portion of the rewards for my work, while they took the majority of it. They argued that since the idea was theirs, they deserved more. I felt like they didn't understand the amount of work that goes into developing an app, and it was as if they were devaluing my skills while saying things like, I could just learn this on my own, or even saying, I can handle the business side, and that's the important part. It honestly really bothered me. They seemed to believe that the idea that they came up with was somehow worth all the effort and technical skill I'd put into the actual building of it. Over time, I started feeling completely unappreciated, like they thought of me as more of a tool to execute their idea rather than an equal partner in the process. Every time I brought up concerns, they would brush them off or act like I was overreacting. They made me feel small, like I was the one who should be grateful for the opportunity to help them. They even made it sound like I should just be happy to do the work and accept whatever I was given, no matter how unfair. Eventually, I realized that I wasn't being treated with respect, and so I decided to walk away. Now, they're saying I'm a bad friend and that I let them down, but honestly, I couldn't stay in a situation where I was being undervalued and disrespected. So seriously, am I the jerk for not accepting a deal that would basically leave me working for peanuts while they walk away with all the credit and reward? Because right now, I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Oh man, this is so toxic, it's not even funny. These people literally took advantage of your skill set just to use you to make money on their side of things. And it's ironic because these people say, oh yeah, we're gonna handle the business side of things. And it's like, oh, okay, you're gonna handle that side of it, but what about my side of it? You literally would have nothing if I didn't develop the app in the first place. Like, you're the one with the technical skills, and if anything, you're the one that could learn their business side of things and not the other way around. Not in a million years could they do what you're doing. That's why they brought you on board, because they know they can't and don't want to do it. And that really is the truth in my opinion. So the fact that they're not giving you more credit for what you're literally building for them, like, that is honestly insane in my opinion, and that goes so much further than just putting your name on the application. This involves a monetary split, and guess what? You have every right to expect more out of them. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for walking away from these idiots, because in my opinion, they 100% were taking advantage of you, and you definitely did not deserve that. An entitled jerk demands that I pay for my community college class the next day simply because they were too lazy to process it right this second. So I decided to get some petty revenge by paying for my class in hundreds of dollars worth of nickels. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that yes, this was 100% petty, and honestly, I have a pretty good reason for it. I went to a community college for a while, and as part of my degree plan pathway to transfer to the university, I needed a specific class, but the community college that I went to didn't offer it, whereas another community college in the same district did. The problem was my scholarship didn't cover it up front, so I had to pay the tuition for the one class and get reimbursed later. So I went to go enroll in the class because it was such an obscure class and I had to go deal with it in person. Well, they made you go through several steps, meaning that you had to see an advisor, then they would tell you whether you were doing the right thing for your degree plan, and this advisor was a moron. I actually wondered if she could even feed herself with a spoon without putting her eye out. After she was finally able to locate the course, which by the way took some difficulty since she kept looking it up in the wrong area, her response when she pulled it up on the computer was to say, "Why do you want to take that class? That looks really hard." Even though I had already explained twice what I was doing and why. After some completely unnecessary haggling, she finally signed off on me being able to enroll. So after that, I just needed to visit the cashier and pay. But the cashier was every bit as stupid as the advisor, possibly even more so. When I explained that I was paying for a single course, she tried to tell me that I needed to be enrolled full-time and that she couldn't do anything about it. I literally had to go get an actual note from the advisor that gave me an override, even though it wasn't necessary, to let me give them actual money. When I got back to the cashier, she looked at the paperwork and seemed very upset. Apparently, I was making her have to do things like, her job. She said that I should change my major because having to do the extra work on her end was too hard, and she didn't feel like doing it. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you for your unsolicited opinion. She then told me they couldn't accept payments that day for some made-up reason, and that I had to come back the next day. So after that, I decided I was going to annoy her. So in the morning, I went to the bank and I got the entire tuition in nickels, and this was roughly like $300. Then I proudly walked into the cashier's office with a box full of nickels that I had gotten about halfway through unwrapping. The cashier was there and said that now she could take my money. So I picked up the box of nickels and I said it was all there. Well, the look on her face was priceless. If you could capture equal parts anger, disgust, irritation, as well as sadness and despair wash over her in about 2 seconds, all after her smug look when I first walked up, it would have been a work of art. I had to wait around while she counted the nickels, and it was honestly completely worth it. Once she finished, I got my receipt, and I left her wondering what she was going to do with all of those nickels. And like I said, it was incredibly petty, but in my opinion, it was completely worth it. Okay, honestly, I can kind of see why the original poster would do this, because seriously, that is so annoying. These people repeatedly told you, this is taking too much work, you can't do this today. You should change your major manager, I don't like this. Or just literally not wanting to do your job at all. Like, my God, I'm so sorry that you have to do your job today, but I really want to get this done. And the fact that you're making this difficult is making me go insane. So seriously, in my opinion, I'm so glad that you paid in nickels, because this is something I've dreamed of doing for a company that I don't like. And I just love the fact that I saw this in action, because this truly was incredibly satisfying. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled boss demands that we only dress in business attire, despite the fact that all other departments on Friday get to wear blue jeans. So we decide to maliciously comply by not only embarrassing her, but also making sure that she never does anything like this ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened many years ago. I worked for a top US banking institution. In our building, all the other departments were allowed to wear blue jeans on Fridays. But my manager decided that our department had to wear business attire on Fridays. To be clear, we had no customer-facing presence, and also our department processes check deposits from ATMs, and they came in mesh bags from the armored courier. They were usually quite filthy and were frequently wet in bad weather. So when our manager told us that we couldn't wear blue jeans on Fridays like every other department, the entire team was upset, and this is where our malicious compliance came into play. The next Friday, I went to my closet, and I found the most mismatched outfit I could possibly put together, but also sticking completely to the business attire requirement. And we are talking pastel floral print shirt with pants with bold colored stripes. So I put it on and I proudly walked into the office. Now my manager just happened to be on vacation that week, so nothing was said about my ridiculous mismatched outfit. But fast forward to next Friday, and I once again chose the most hideous combination of an outfit that I could possibly put together. Once again, I walked into the office with my head held high, confident in my business attire. Well, imagine my surprise as my boss walks in and sees everyone in their various hideous outfits. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. All 15 of us in hideous outfits, but all meeting the business attire dress code. She then pulled all of us into a meeting and told us that our attire was entirely inappropriate for a business environment and that she would have to write each and every one of us up. I then asked her to pull out the company handbook and read the definition of what it said as business attire. Well, she read it, and it stated something like a clean and pressed business attire consisting of slacks, skirts or dresses, and clean pressed shirts and blouses. It went on to say something like no blue jeans, no t-shirts, no ripped or clothing with holes in them, no sleeveless shirts, and no athletic or gym shoes. I then asked her where in the guidelines does it say anything about whether the outfits matched or not. Well, she couldn't find anything and said that she would have to contact HR to discuss with them what her options were to write us up. Well, needless to say, none of us were written up. She did, however, say we still needed to dress in business attire. Word quickly spread to other departments about her forcing us to wear business attire. And the next week, 2 departments around us decided that they would also dress up in hideously matched clothing. The managers of those departments quickly got in touch with our manager and put pressure on her as they didn't like how their employees were dressing. Our manager called us into a meeting and told us that we could wear blue jeans on Fridays going forward, which to me is absolutely a huge win. I love this for so many reasons, but most of all, you got back at this lady for a stupid rule. Seriously, it's Friday and you don't work in any kind of customer-facing position, so there really is no reason why you can't just wear blue jeans in the back as you're looking at checks and all this other stuff. Like, she could have easily bent the rules and been like, okay, wear blue jeans on Fridays, it's not a big deal. And then that would be that. Like, seriously, just give it a rest. So good for you for following the rules, but also showing her how stupid she was acting, because honestly, her attitude was incredibly annoying. Am I the jerk for not wanting to come to my mom's house, all because my sister's fiance is always there? Because right now I'm honestly very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female and I just want to know if I'm overreacting about this situation. So for a bit of backstory, my sister and her fiance got engaged in April of 2024. She comes home nearly every weekend and he always comes with her. I lived at home from January 2024 until October of 2024, all while I was finishing my clinical rotations. My dad had cancer and life was truly a mess. I didn't really notice then how much I didn't like having my sister's fiance around every weekend, because at the time I was living at home and was able to relax the rest of the week away from him. I moved an hour away for a new job in October of 2024 and would come to my parents nearly every weekend because of my dad and his condition. Sadly, he passed away this January, and my home visits have been much less frequent, which has caused some tension with my mom while also having to deal with the stress of the drive. I was super close with my dad, and I wanted to spend as much time with him as I could just in case. I went home this weekend to visit, and I already wasn't feeling great because I've had a sinus infection all week and I jacked my knee up at work. I knew my sister would be home this weekend, but she made it sound like her fiance wouldn't be there. Well, surprise surprise, surprise, when I walked in the door, I saw him, and instantly I felt this irritation that I hadn't felt in a while. I was nice and cordial, of course, but I was truly disappointed knowing that he was there because there was so much I wanted to talk to my sister and mom about alone, primarily related to my dad. Now, he's not a bad guy, but he is super sarcastic and not a very touchy-feely kind of guy, so I'm not comfortable sharing any of those feelings in front of him, and I can barely bring myself to talk privately with my mom in my parents' bedroom, all because of my dad. The other thing is that he's not nice to my dog at all. He yells at him a lot and acts all annoyed with him all the time, and my dog can be annoying, but he's generally well behaved. He just asks for pets sometimes, and this annoys her fiance. Well, I started feeling physically worse and felt the trip was overall a waste since I got no actual time with my mom and sister since they were busy doing wedding planning stuff. The wedding is in May, so I'm obviously not mad at that, and they were getting their hair done and so on and so forth. Well, I just decided I didn't feel good and I wanted to go back home. So I texted my mom that I was leaving and that I was sorry about the short notice. She then texted me later to see how I was doing, and I said I was feeling somewhat depressed and just sick in general. Now, I don't know why I did, but I also told her the stuff about my sister's fiance and how I didn't feel comfortable talking with him around or how he treats my dog. I told her that she'd have to come visit me from now on because I just don't like feeling uncomfortable in the place I used to live, and I want my dog to feel free to be a dog. Now, at this, she kind of made me feel bad, as she said that he was going to be family, but I told her that he's not family to me and he never will be. And I think it's then that I realized just how much I don't like him when I said that. My sister would be devastated if I ever told her that, so I won't do that, but I genuinely just don't like the guy. He is sarcastic, he can be rude often, he thinks that he's always right, and picks on my sister at times with things that bother her. They are always play arguing, and what I mean by that is that they argue but in like an unserious tone of voice, but the content is the same every single time. I don't know, I think that some of these things have just been crawling under my skin for a while, and they're just bursting to the surface now. The other small thing that bothered me was he didn't show any emotion when my dad was in the ICU or at his funeral, and he knew him for 2 years. He just sat there emotionless as my sisters, mom, and I bawled our eyes out. I know people deal with things differently, but it still bothers me to this day. So truly, am I overreacting in this situation? And please be honest with me, because I don't want to lose my family relationships, all because I don't like one person that I won't have to be around all the time. I'm just feeling somewhat guilty, but also struggling to decide if this is just a boundary of mine or if I'm being too harsh. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I think you are overreacting just a little bit, and I think you may be grieving the loss of your father. And in that regard, I really am sorry for what you're going through, and I'm so sorry that he passed away. Like, that really must be so hard, and I can only imagine going through that. And in my opinion, it kind of sounds like you're taking it out on this fiance, because from the sounds of it, the only bad thing he does is get annoyed by your dog. Like, sure, he's sarcastic and he doesn't really take things seriously, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person. And just because he didn't cry at the funeral or show like any emotion doesn't mean that he wasn't sad and that he didn't like care about your dad, because I'm sure that he did. And in regards to your sister and fiance having this weird relationship, honestly, it all just kind of seems harmless, and it seems like you just get annoyed by it really easily. But with all that in mind, if this guy really bothers you and you really don't like being around him, then that really is the one thing you can control. You can just choose to not be around him. And sure, that's easier said than done, I totally get it. But aside from him yelling at your dog, it doesn't seem like he's really doing anything to offend you or anything like that. So yes, in my opinion, I do think you're overreacting, and I really think this is something that can be easily solved. Am I overreacting for leaving my birthday dinner after my fiance announced a fake pregnancy? Here's what happened. Okay, so last night was my birthday dinner, and it was just a chill night with family and friends. Everything was going great until my fiance stands up to give a special toast. Then, out of nowhere, he says that we're so excited to announce that we are expecting. And it's like, wait a second, what are you talking about? When he said this, I just stared at him like he lost his mind because I am not pregnant. And at this point, he is smiling and my mom is crying and his family's clapping while I'm sitting there wondering what in the world is going on. I finally ask what he's talking about, and this man with a straight face says that he's been manifesting it and it's only a matter of time. Well, once he said that, I was done. I then got up and I left the restaurant. He then followed me all mad, saying I embarrassed him and I should have just gone along with it for the night. And now his family is blowing up my phone saying I ruined a beautiful moment. And it's like, seriously, what is that even about? So honestly, was I overreacting in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly still incredibly pissed off. Oh my gosh, no. First off, you did not overreact, but also that is a huge red flag. You mean to tell me that this guy at your birthday dinner seriously made a fake pregnancy announcement? Like, are you kidding me right now? What is going on? That is such a toxic thing and so unbelievably weird. Like, I do hope you've informed the family that yeah, he was lying lying and that you're not actually pregnant, because there's no reason for anyone to be like, oh, you ruined a beautiful moment. It's like, hey, stupid, I'm not pregnant. My fiance literally just lied to all of you. So no, you didn't overreact, and in my opinion, I think you did the right thing, because what he did to you was completely unacceptable. My mom expects my husband to reach out to her for her medical procedure, despite the fact that he's currently in South Korea, saying that he simply doesn't care, and that if he did, he would reach out in the way that she wants. And I'm honestly so annoyed that right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom is getting a hip replacement tomorrow, but she always has medical procedures done, and this does happen pretty often. My husband and I are apart as we wait for our marriage visa to come through, and I'm very lucky I get to see him 3 times a year in his home country of South Korea, and I'm seeing him in a few weeks. From the previous times my mom has gotten procedures done, she always complains that my husband doesn't reach out to her. Last summer, she was in the hospital due to a stomach issue, and she asked if my husband knows. Now, I'm sorry, but why would I tell him about my mom being sick to her stomach and in the hospital? I told her no, and that it's her private medical business. She then freaked out and claimed that I'm embarrassed over her. And I'm sorry, but what will he do about this? He's not even in the same country as us. I was also in the ER last summer with high blood pressure issues, and of course my husband knew, and he was supportive through phone calls, FaceTime, and text messages. But he is in a different country, and there's nothing seriously that he can do about it. My mom told me just now that my brother's girlfriend wished her good luck on her procedure, and then complained that my husband didn't reach out to her. My husband did say to me over the phone that he wishes her good luck, and I told her just that, but she claims that I probably didn't even tell him. She also said he's doing this all wrong, and I said, well, you can either take the best wishes that he's sending your way, or just continue whining. She didn't say anything after that, so I'm hoping that's the end of it. But I don't know if I'm being rude and if my husband is wrong. I just don't know why every time she has a medical procedure that she wants my husband to know and judges him if he doesn't reach out to her. I'm very private about my medical history, and if I'm in the hospital or going to a doctor, I don't want everyone to know, but I guess we're different in that sense. I just hate the fact that she's criticizing my husband over what I think is the dumbest reason, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I completely agree with the original poster here, because the mom in this story sounds really weird. Like, why is she complaining about this? The original poster literally relayed his message over to her mom, so why is she getting so upset that he isn't calling her personally? Like, that is so weird. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that just doesn't make any sense. Especially when the husband's in a different time zone. Like, the time you expect him to call you is probably like, what, 3 in the morning? So yeah, your mom is being super weird, and I think her behavior towards your husband is very childish. My entitled coworkers demand that I get them a new computer so that one of their interns can continue to do so well at their job. So I decided to maliciously comply by tricking them into giving them a system that literally is worse than the one they were complaining about. And I'm honestly so glad that I ended up getting away with it. Here's what happened. So I used to be the systems admin, engineer, and everything at a company of 300 people. Most of them were remote salespeople with laptops, and most of the salespeople had unpaid interns in this training program that, to me, seemed like an absolute nightmare. The interns were provisioned with any computer that I could cobble together, and part of the program was getting the commissions enough to earn an office and a computer. It seems stupid to me, but not my policies. These things were mid-grade Dell workstations when they were new, and had long surpassed their useful life cycle. The president, the co-owner, the vice president, human resources, and my leadership will not allow new equipment allocation to the interns under any circumstance. Not even $10 keyboards that come with new computers. It has to be decommissioned from an employee or sales rep to get into the hands of the interns. Well, another quirk about this company is that your service priority was determined by your performance in sales, which meant that mentors would advocate for their interns, and there was constant squabbling over who got less crappy equipment, and nearly every sales rep was a self-important jerk. One rep was having a particularly good year, and one of his interns had one of the better crap boxes, but complained about it constantly. I already pull the RAM and swap processors whenever possible, so this rep, we'll call him John for the sake of the story, calls me into his office every week or so just to disparage me because I'm the one responsible for his intern being held back. It's also important to note that reps are allowed to pay for gear for interns if they want to pay for it, but you know what? They never do. Eventually, the company vice president, who is, by the way, a self-important jerk that the president liked but failed utterly as a salesperson, calls me into his office to discuss my attitude. But I'm extremely professional at work, and I took the beating. The vice president knew the situation, but took John's side and ordered me to improve the situation in some way. Do something, anything to enable the success of the interns and make the sacrifices if I have to. So I thought, fine, let's do it. I had an off-brand computer case in my office that was gathering dust. It was there when I started, and I had no idea where it came from. Over the weekend, I transplanted everything in the intern's workstation to the computer case. Since it was coming from a Dell workstation, I had to remove all the slides and parts that make the things easy to service, but you know what? I made it fit. It was a rush job and a monstrosity, but I got the build time for it. I had to fashion a metal shim to cover the holes that the main board didn't extend to, but it worked and it had the same insides. Oh, and because it was such a mess, I had to leave a stick of RAM out since it wouldn't fit. Oh, and I may or may not have accidentally dropped the processor that I didn't need to remove and had to put in another processor from another machine that was slightly slower. I carefully removed the Windows sticker from the old case and put it on the new case. So I got to work early on Monday and I plugged it in. A few hours later, I got called down to John's office and figured that I was in for it. The thing was even crappier than before, but in a different and not better container. But when I walked in, I saw that the intern was beaming, John was beaming, and the vice president was beaming. They thanked me for my hard work and gave me a $5 gift card for a coffee shop. And I'm honestly blown away by these people's stupidity. Yeah, that's honestly one of those situations where these people just wanted a shiny new box and they didn't actually know what they were looking for. Like seriously, these people are so dumb. They literally didn't realize that this computer was just as crappy as the other one, if not way worse based on what the original poster described. So good for you for getting one over on these people, because clearly they had no idea what they were talking about. Am I the jerk for forcing a woman to return the bag of cans that she stole out of the back of my truck, even though she was probably homeless and needed the money? Because after I told my friends about this situation, one of them freaked out on me about it. And now I'm starting to second guess if I did the right thing. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was out yesterday running errands, and I had a really big transparent bag of cans I was going to take to the bottle drop sitting in the bed of the truck. Well, I stopped to get lunch first, and when I came back out, the bags of cans were gone. So I drove towards the bottle drop, and sure enough, I saw a woman heading that way, lugging my bag of cans on the sidewalk. Well, I pulled over, and she clearly recognized my truck. I then accused her of stealing the cans from my truck, and she denied it. Well, that is until I said I was going to call the police, while also saying that the restaurant I was at likely caught her theft with their CCTV, so she can either admit that she stole them from me and return the cans, or I would call the cops. She then got angry and told me that money was tight right now, and it was just a bag of cans, but I told her that she didn't get to steal from me and play the victim, so it was either return the bag or I would call the cops. She tried to say the cops wouldn't care about a bag of cans, so I told her that we should find out. I was about to start dialing when she dropped the bag and then told me to go F myself. She walked away ranting and saying that I have no sympathy. I told my friends about this later, and one of their girlfriends absolutely went off on me. She went on a rant about how I didn't know what kind of situation that woman might have been in, and she could have been homeless for all I knew. So I should have just let her have the cans. We had a big argument and she left furious, and I was pretty sure I was in the right before, but now I don't know. So honestly, am I the jerk for what I did to this lady? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, maybe I'm alone on this part, but honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I do not believe that Thievery is right, and that woman had no right taking those cans out of the back of your truck. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because what she did was completely unacceptable. My middle school bully destroyed my self-confidence in a way that honestly devastated me. So I decided to get some revenge by literally turning the entire school against her in a way that lost her all of her friends, her status, and all of her popularity. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So my family moved to a new state when I was about to start middle school. It wasn't the first time that I had to start off a new year in a new school with none of my childhood friends, and it's never a fun experience, but this time was way different. This new school was a private school, and it was small, and we're talking like 3 kids in my entire grade small. I went to a public elementary school before this, and I was very much the tomboy in the all-boys friend group, with a couple of less girly girl friends who also preferred things like video games and cool bugs. I'd always been pretty selective about who I made friends with, and before, I had plenty of other kids in my grade to choose from, but not here, because in this school, it was just 2 other girls, and we'll call them Hannah and Jessica for the sake of the story. Now, these 2 seem like pretty typical girls to me, and I'd seen their type before in elementary school. Hannah came off as a standard popular girl, though without the clique due to the population shortage, with Jessica serving as a sort of like one-person clique or henchman. Mostly, Jessica was just quiet and went along with whatever Hannah did. Now, given a choice, I definitely wouldn't have been friends with either of them, not because I had anything against them, but I just prefer to hang out with other kids who share my same interests. But I really didn't have a choice here. We were stuck together all day, 5 days a week, and I had no extracurriculars or young neighbors to befriend, so I just tried to make the best out of it. When birthdays or sleepovers happened, it would be me, Hannah, and Jessica, and it wasn't awful or anything like that. I had fun doing the stuff they liked, and I did my best to engage them with more universal interests, like drawing or info dumping about fairies or mythology, stuff like that. So basically, I became the slightly awkward second member of Hannah's posse. Things were okay for the first 2 years. On the second year, another girl joined our grade. And honestly, it did feel like Hannah and Jessica preferred the new girl to me, but I didn't mind as much, since I started making friends with a couple of the boys in the grade above ours, and some of the girls in the grade below me. She ended up only staying for 1 year though, and the year she left is when things suddenly changed. I came back from summer break for that last year of middle school, expecting things to be par for the course. The private school only taught up to 8th grade, so my friends in the grade above were gone, but we still hung out outside of school, and I even started dating one of them. Not to mention that I still had friends in the grade below me. I assumed Hannah, Jessica, and I would all still be on friendly terms, but this was not the case at all. Suddenly, Hannah was treating me like her mortal enemy. She only talked to me to make snide or belittling comments, and every time I raised my hand in class to voice a thought or ask a question, she would scoff and roll her eyes, acting like whatever I just said was the stupidest thing she'd ever heard, and just disagreeing with or even arguing with me against everything. At one point, she even started acting like I was diseased or something like that, going to ridiculous lengths to avoid getting close to me or even touching me. I was a very outspoken and engaged student, and I loved to ask questions and talk to my teachers to learn more and discuss my thoughts, but the way Hannah was treating me was so demoralizing. I had boy bullies in elementary school who would tease me for things like my speech impediment and for hanging out with other boys and including the special education kids at lunch and recess. I have ADHD, and I had a really strong response to being rejected, and that meant I usually responded to that kind of bullying with aggression, and I got in a lot of trouble for beating up any kid who tried to bully me or my friends. But this was different though. All the things that Hannah did were these small, subtle things that I just didn't know how to react to, but they slowly chipped away at my self-confidence until eventually I just stopped raising my hand in class. I stopped speaking up and voicing my thoughts and opinions. I completely clamped up and went from a bright and confident extrovert to an uncertain and reserved introvert. It's a shift that honestly to this day I have not recovered from. I mean, girl bullying is on a different level, but at least I have solace of knowing that I got her back pretty good. As this was going on for the first half of the year, I was getting closer with my friends in the grades below me. The school was still small but expanding, so the 2 grades below ours had maybe a couple dozen kids all together, and they were all pretty intermingled with friendships because everyone just had to hang out together regardless of age difference due to the size of the school. Everyone sat together at lunch and hung out during recess, though the 8th graders had always gotten the first pick of the outdoor picnic tables when the weather was nice. And that's where Hannah and Jessica always sat, and whatever other kids felt like sitting outside that day would hang out with them. As time went on though, the other kids started noticing the way that Hannah was treating me. It was pretty blatant, at least after she started acting like I was some kind of leper. Hannah had never made much of an effort to really engage with the kids in the lower grades, usually just treating them more like an audience to her stunted popular girl aspirations, and more the other kids in school started being turned off by her. I was so demoralized and silenced by Hannah that it took me a while to even realize that the other kids disliked her, and they were rallying around me. By that time, we were in the last quarter of school, and being surrounded by friends and people who agreed that Hannah was being horrible to me started to restore a little bit of my confidence, and it was then that I started to act. For the rest of the year, I started to be more vocal about all the things Hannah had said and done to me. I would tell my friends while they were hanging out with their friends, until the whole school wasn't just a bit put off by her. They knew just how much of an awful, pointless, mean girl she was being, and they were all fully against her. No one in the lower grades would talk to Hannah or Jessica anymore, and no one would hang out with them or sit with them at lunch, while I was always welcomed and surrounded by friends. One last detail about this school is that since it only went up to 8th grade, it made middle school graduation a much bigger deal than most other schools seemed to. There were plans to rent out a small venue with flowers and snacks and have a little party afterwards. And since it was just the 3 of us graduating that year, it was going to be pretty intimate and personalized to the 3 of us. Our families were all very involved in the planning, and we got dresses to wear under our little robes and fancy graduation pictures taken beforehand and everything. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the year, basically the entire school had fully turned against Hannah, and Hannah and Jessica eventually just sat alone together during lunch and recess at the picnic tables because everyone refused to hang out with them. Now, Jessica had always gone along with Hannah with everything from day one, and even when we were friendly for the first couple of years, we had never talked a ton because she was mostly just very quiet. But that day, I came out of the lunchroom while Hannah was getting her food, and I sat down with Jessica. I said hi to her and I asked her how she was, and she was maybe a little weirded out and standoffish, but she just shrugged and said that she was fine. I told her how I know her and Hannah had been sitting alone, and I mentioned to her how mean Hannah had been to me, and how she wasn't really very nice to Jessica either, how Hannah always got things her way, and how she spoke for and over Jessica a lot of the time. Finally, I offered that if she wanted to, she could come and sit with me and my friends friends, that she deserved better friends, and that we would all be happy to have her. By the time Hannah got outside to the picnic tables, Jessica was gone, sitting inside with a table full of kids ready to welcome her and treat her like a friend and not like a henchman. I heard it secondhand from some other kids that Hannah apparently called her mom in tears, begging her to come and pick her up from school. She wasn't in class that afternoon, and I literally never even saw her ever again. She never came back to school, and she didn't show up to graduation, so it was just me and Jessica and our families there with a third too many seats and snacks. I ended up going to boarding school for my first year of high school, so I lost touch with Jessica, but I made some incredible lifelong friends there who helped me open back up and realize a lot of my passions. I still second guess myself a lot about speaking up, and I still have worries about coming off as stupid whenever I open my mouth, or people not caring about what I say. But knowing I ruined Hannah's graduation and that I got her back for what she did to me, at the very least, gives me a little bit of sweet satisfaction. Okay, as someone who got bullied a lot in this exact same manner, where it's really subtle and you can never pinpoint an incident or something like that, I really love this story and I love the outcome. Because seriously, Hannah in this story absolutely got exactly what she deserved. She lost everybody around her because of the way she's been treating people, and she finally realized that she was in the place of the people she was bullying. And that is so amazing to see, because in almost every situation, you never get to see this kind of revenge. You're never able to turn the dial the other way and turn this against the bully. It's usually the case where the bully gets away with it and nothing's ever done about it. And that, in my opinion, is so unbelievably unfair. Seriously, that really sucks, and I just can't stand when that happens. Because I don't know about you, but this can absolutely mess somebody up. And it also always happens in middle school. Seriously, what is with middle school? That age group, man, I'm telling you, people are so vicious at that age. So seriously, good for you for getting back at this bully, because the end result that she received, in my opinion, is exactly what she deserved, especially if she's going to be treating people in the way that she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister got really mad at our mother after she defended me from some creeps at a bank, because right now I'm incredibly frustrated with her and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened on a day I had to take my truck back to the mechanic because it was running like crap. My former best friend was with me, and we decided to take a walk because the lobby at the mechanic shop was full with no seats available. While out walking along the sidewalk, we ran into a guy that was wearing a hood and had a black eye, and he was begging me for a lighter while holding half a cigarette. I told him I don't smoke, but he wasn't convinced and just kept asking me. Then he asked if there was some place he could get a lighter or matches for free. I pointed and suggested some place random for him to go, and then I just kept walking. But the guy kept walking ahead of us and repeatedly pointed at me while talking as if he was having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. Then he disappeared behind a building somewhere. My friend and I then went into a discount department store, and then by chance we ran into my mother. So we helped her out with her groceries and she gave us a ride. But her next stop was the bank, so we just waited in the car. I was looking at prices for car parts on my phone when suddenly there was a knock at my window. And when I looked up, it was the same guy from earlier. And this time he was accompanied by another guy who was sticking his head up against the driver's side window and asking for a ride. The guy was carrying an 18-pack of beer and saying that he'd give me 2 in exchange for a ride. But I was repeatedly telling him that it was not my car and not my decision. Now, I'm a fairly big guy, but I'm not super confrontational in situations like this. And I was just trying to get them to go away. Then suddenly, my mother appeared at the doors of the bank, yelling at them to get away from her car and to get away from her kids. The guy with the black eye started yelling at her, but she again told them to leave. But the guy was screaming at her like an angry 14-year-old, yelling that he didn't care. But my mother in turn repeatedly told him to shut up. All the while, the guy with a case of beer was trying to get the one with the black eye to stop it. And finally, after some time, they got him to start walking away. But he kept turning around to yell at my mother some more until he was finally across the street. The 2 guys disappeared behind some buildings and were eventually gone. I was so proud of my mother that day. She was 56 years old and she still went absolutely mama bear. But you know who wasn't happy about it? My sister, who looks for absolutely any excuse to blame our mother for anything. As soon as my sister found out, she started ranting about how our mother made a scene in public and was acting completely unhinged. I pointed out to my sister that if it had been her kids, she would have done the exact same thing. And while she denied this, I know it's true. My sister is no stranger to making scenes in public, especially when she's intoxicated, which was pretty much all the time. I mean, she's the one who's actually unhinged and has essentially lost all of her friends in the past 3 years because of it. In fact, she was so toxic, we had to evict her in late 2023. Anytime the incident where our mother scared off those creeps was even mentioned around my sister, she would go off and act like what our mother did was was completely wrong, and she was wrong for even doing it in the first place. But not only is my sister a hypocrite, she was only doing that because it doesn't really matter what our mother does. She will find something negative about it, and then blow it out of proportion. She tried to make our mother the villain so she could lie to herself and think that she's not a bad person. But I've got news for you, sister. You are a bad person. A very bad person. The last time I saw my sister was a couple of weeks ago, and I kicked her off the property because she is not allowed to be here. She screamed at me for choosing our mother over her and said, "I hope she was worth it to you." And then she swore at me again as she drove off. But honestly, I'm still proud of my mother for the way she defended me, because that situation was incredibly scary. Yeah, your sister is super weird. It sounds like she just doesn't like your mom for some dumb reason, and she's trying to find any reason possible to be like, "Oh yeah, look how bad of a person she is." And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here. The sister is projecting her own weird insecurities onto the situation and trying to make the mom out to be a villain, when in reality, the sister is the bad person altogether. So yeah, I definitely believe the original poster when they say that their sister sucks, and I think you have a good mom who's willing to defend you in weird situations. Because honestly, what you dealt with that guy was really weird, and I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for taking an Uber home instead of sitting on a man's lap for over an hour and a half traveling back from the beach with friends? Because right now, my friend is calling me a massive jerk and that I ditched everybody instead of just going along with it. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my best friend, who we will call Sarah, recently got a new boyfriend who we will call James, and she is over the moon into him. Sarah is also one of the very few people that I hang out with. She recently met James's friend group, a group of guys, and they invited her to go on a beach trip with them. Sarah begged me to go with them and kept insisting I join even when I declined the offer about 4 times. But eventually, I just agreed to go to get her off my back about being sad and alone. Now, I was told that I would have a ride. Sarah and I were the last to be picked up, and when they pulled up, there were 4 guys in a 5-passenger car. Well, I see this as my way out, and I say, oh, well, it looks like there isn't enough room for the both of us. You can go enjoy the beach with your boyfriend. I don't mind staying behind. Sarah tells me that it isn't a big deal if she sits on James's lap to make it work, and immediately I feel on edge. It turns out James was the one driving and said he wouldn't trust anybody else to drive his car. He told me that I would be the one sitting on someone's lap because there's no way he would let Sarah do that. But the thing is, I don't know these guys at all. I pull Sarah aside and I tell her that I'm not comfortable, thinking that she would help me out or something like that. Instead, she encourages me, saying that she thinks I would have fun and maybe even get a date. She is so into James and has been talking about this trip nonstop for over a week. So I decided to just do it to make her happy. 2 of the 3 guys offer up their laps, and I just picked the guy with the most leg room. We drive about 45 minutes from the nearest beach, so I really thought it wouldn't be too bad, except that I was told on the drive that we were actually going to a beach an hour and a half away instead. Well, my mood just became more and more sour. I never once relaxed, and eventually I find myself quietly fuming once my emotions set in. The boys that I'm squeezed into the back with just talk around me, physically leaning over me constantly and brushing up against me. Once we get to the beach, we set up and I finally find a moment to relax. I eat a sandwich I packed and I read a book, while Sarah and James are lovey-dovey and the guys mess around in the ocean. I was asked twice about why I only packed a sandwich for myself, and this was not said in a joking manner either. I mean, not once had I been asked to bring a single thing. When it came time to part where everyone was getting in the car, I just told James and Sarah that I had called an Uber to pick me up because I didn't want to sit on anyone's lap for an hour and a half. Sarah tried to argue, but my ride showed up and I just left. I then got a call from Sarah a few hours later. She called me a bad friend for ditching everybody. When I told her how the whole day was making me feel like crap, she told me I was being selfish and that I had been acting like a jerk all day. Now, I did not deserve that, but I am also pretty paranoid that I did something wrong. So truly, am I the jerk for taking an Uber home? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. Sarah sucks as a friend. I'm gonna say that outright because that is so unbelievably toxic. Like literally, she made you sit on a stranger's lap for an hour and a half. Are you kidding me right now? Like, I don't know about you, but that would make me incredibly uncomfortable, especially with everyone in the back just talking around me and brushing up against me. Like, I'm sorry, but that's really creepy and weird. And I can totally understand why you got in the car in the first place. Like, you're just trying to be a good friend and you're trying to make Sarah happy and be like, okay, it's not gonna be like that long, right? But for her to be like, oh yeah, we're going an hour and a half away, strap in. It's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I'm sitting on a guy's lap that I don't even know. I don't want to be here. This is weird. Not to mention incredibly dangerous. Like, why would anybody advocate for you to sit on someone's lap like that and pressure you into that knowing that it's not safe? Like, what are we doing right now? And then for Sarah to come back and be like, you are so selfish. You're a bad friend. I can't believe you. You ditched all of us. And it's like, dude, no, I didn't ditch anybody. You literally put my life in danger to sit on someone's stupid stupid lap, saying, oh, you never know, you could get a date out of it. Like, seriously, Sarah's a moron. Like, are you kidding? So no, you're not the jerk. This is so weird of Sarah to ask of you. And the fact that she got offended over this and is somehow upset because you took a stand, like that, in my opinion, shows the real person that Sarah truly is. An entitled worker at a UPS store refuses to allow me to return my Amazon product while also claiming that it'll be $20 for a box, despite the fact that everybody told me it would be free. So I decide to maliciously comply by literally putting together a box with some box cutters and some painter's tape in such a way that would force this lady to repackage it and retape it in the way that she should have done in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ordered a faulty walking treadmill from Amazon that had a broken 3-prong plug. When I contacted Amazon, they told me I was past the return window and that I had to contact the manufacturer. Mind you, I was only 2 days past the return window, and I kindly asked to speak to a supervisor to see if a one-time exception could be made, as I am a Prime customer. And doesn't Amazon pride itself on customer service? So after Amazon refused to return the item, I contacted the manufacturer. Well, they also gave me the runaround and did not want to replace it either. So I contacted Amazon again, and I explained the situation to them, and now magically, I'm offered a one-time exception, and they appreciate my business so much, and they are so thankful for me being a Prime customer. Now, Amazon told me to take it to any UPS store, and they would package and return it for me for free. This was also confirmed via telephone with UPS. Now, for those wondering, I opened this package in February soon after I opened it, and I just moved it and threw away all the boxes and everything after cleanup. I get to the UPS store, and I lug this 50-pound contraption to the front desk, and I hand them a return label. The lady immediately looks at me and tells me I need a box, but I politely explained to her that I was informed by both Amazon and UPS that the return packaging is free. The woman then tells me at least 5 times that no, it is not, and that I need a box. For reference, I'm a college student who has 31 cents to my name. She then tells me that the box is $20, but I just spent my last $30 on medication, so I do not have $20. And I was told by multiple people that this was free of charge. She then rudely and loudly tells me that I need a box and that this is the policy, completely embarrassing me in front of multiple customers. And it's like, okay, fine. You want a box? You're gonna get a box. A UPS driver then tells me he will borrow some tape from the store and a box cutter and will help me tape up some boxes to return it. Now at this point, he goes back into the store and asks for tape to help me, and the lady at the counter tells him no, which is honestly not that big of a surprise considering the lady at the front desk. So I go outside to the dumpster and proceed to tape up multiple boxes with the help of the kind UPS driver and get some painter's tape from a nearby Little Caesars and somehow get it into the box. And trust me when I say this, even though I got it in a box, or what you would call a box, they absolutely will have to repackage it and retape it because what I gave them was absolutely hilarious. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where they absolutely are at fault, and that lady behind the front desk should be fired. Seriously, this is unacceptable, and I just can't believe that she's trying to be like, oh yeah, it's gonna be $20 for a box. It's like, no, it's not. Everybody said it's free. Sorry, but I'm not gonna pay you $20 for something that's free. I quite literally cannot stand people who don't want to do their job and then somehow shift the burden of doing their job onto the customer. That is honestly so obnoxious, and I cannot stand that. Like, seriously, get a life and get another job if you hate it that much. But don't put that responsibility on my shoulders just because you're too lazy. And the Karen behind the desk in this story absolutely was just that. She was lazy and she didn't want to do what she needed to do. So yeah, I love this malicious compliance because now, whether she likes it or not, she's gonna have to repackage it and retape it whether she likes it or not. My entitled brother-in-law wakes me up from a nap, demanding that I make him dinner, stating that as long as me and my family are staying in his house temporarily, then I need to be in the kitchen just like his wife, making him dinner whenever he wants. And I'm honestly blown away by this situation, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband, who we will call Tom, as well as our 2 sons, were recently in a house fire and lost our home, but luckily we were all out of the house when this happened. Tom's brother, who we will call Sean, as well as his wife, agreed to let us stay at his place with their kids while we sort out insurance. Now, I don't like Sean, as he believes in traditional gender roles in his household. We have had issues ever since he realized I would keep my maiden name at work, which I informed him was none of his business, and it was my personal choice. He works full-time and his wife is a housewife. When we had our sons, Sean thought that I would quit my job as a doctor and become a stay-at-home mom. However, Tom became a stay-at-home dad instead, and then went back to work after our son went to school, and doesn't share the same thought process as Sean. Sean clearly disapproves of this and me, and he vocalized his thoughts about the situation. I got Tom to speak to Sean, and he has left us alone ever since then, but occasionally used to make comments at holidays and birthdays about which I just completely ignore. They stopped when Tom returned to work, and since then, Tom says that Sean has grown as a person. Tom and Sean are very close, and I would never tell him to stop talking to him, but I personally interact as little as possible with Sean. My son's school and Tom's workplace is walking distance from Sean's house, which is why I agreed to stay and suck it up while we get back on our feet, as it is temporary. Yesterday was a very hectic day at work, and I was exhausted. My shift ended midday, and I went straight to bed. Everyone was out of the house, and Sean and Tom went to work. The kids were at school, and Sean's wife went to see a friend. Well, Sean got home first, and he woke me up. Now, I was upset and still tired, and when I asked him why, he said to me that I should start making dinner as it was getting late, and his wife was out and not picking up her phone. Usually, I do the cooking in the house with his wife, but I was upset that Sean had woken me up, and I yelled at him to not disturb me. I then kicked him out of the room, and I told him I was going back to sleep and he could sort out his own dinner. When I woke up that evening, Sean told me that while I was under his house, I need to respect his house rules. I told him he could have cooked for himself, heated leftovers in the fridge, or gotten takeaway. Now, Tom thinks that Sean did overstep by waking me up and making demands, but I shouldn't have yelled and escalated the situation. So honestly, at this point, I'm incredibly pissed off and frustrated, and I really don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to this situation. Here's what they had to say. Okay, to start things out, I didn't expect so many responses, and I have read quite a few of them. I spoke to a friend who said that we are welcome at her place. I told my husband I was leaving with the kids, and he was welcome to join me or stay at Sean's house. My brother-in-law didn't tell my husband the whole story and said I just flat out refused to cook and then yelled at him out of tiredness when one of the conditions on us staying was that we would cook and help out around the house. I was upset that my husband believed Sean, but he also didn't have the full story. In our culture, we place a big emphasis on respecting elders, and I know I feel uncomfortable opposing elder relatives on my side of the family, so I get why my husband does struggle. This experience has made me put my foot down though, and I've told my husband I don't want our sons anywhere near him. I think this has also been an eye-opener for my husband, and he has agreed to move out with me, although my brother-in-law asked him to stay. When we get our place sorted out, only my sister-in-law and my kids' cousins will be allowed over. My sister-in-law has called to apologize for my brother-in-law's behavior, but here's the thing, I have not heard from him at all. He was silent to me and only talked to my husband and the kids. I agreed to move in with my brother-in-law as I believed that he had changed in his beliefs, and it had been a few years since our last fight, but apparently not. Also, the house belonged to my husband's late parents, and he owns half of it. Also, with our insurance, they have finally ruled the fire as a faulty electrical situation in the kitchen, so we will get a place of our own by Friday. But regardless, I hope I never deal with my brother-in-law ever again, because what he did to me was absolutely uncalled for. Holy crap, that guy is such an awful person. Sean literally walked over to the original poster and said, "Hey, while you're in my house, you need to cook in the kitchen." Basically saying, oh yeah, women belong in the kitchen while you're under my roof. It's like, dude, what are you doing? If you want to try that crap with your wife, I guess go for it, even though I think it's wrong. But to do that crap to somebody else's wife under the guise of, oh, if you're under my house, you have to follow my rules. Like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, but that is not gonna happen. You can't boss someone around and like take away their autonomy, all because you're hungry and you want dinner. Who's gonna make my dinner now? It's like, dude, what are you talking about right now? Order a pizza, heat up some leftovers, cook for yourself, do something. Don't drag a guest in your house into this and be like, oh, if you're gonna be in my house, you gotta follow the rules. And it's like, your rules are super sexist. What are you talking about? Oh, okay, so you make the women cook for you? What are you, like 12 years old? So yeah, this whole scenario is so messed up, it's not even funny. But I'm honestly super glad the original poster put this guy in his place, because him not only saying this to you, but also trying to lie about it, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would never deal with this guy ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I kicked a client out the door of my store because he came in 5 minutes before closing and tried to ask 1,000 questions before we were done for the day. But I truly was not willing to deal with that, and so I asked him to leave. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a copy center, and we print documents and photos. And at 9:54 p.m., a guy came in to print business cards. First of all, why in the world is he here 5 minutes before closing? Secondly, he came in with something that can't be solved in 5 minutes, because A, it's just business cards, and B, he started asking a bunch of stupid follow-up questions, meaning he had no idea what he needed. You're probably guessing that business cards are printed and sliced on a machine in large runs, and it's not done in a regular office with a Xerox machine. Even if it isn't true, that's fine, because you likely listen politely to my explanation, realize you won't get the results you want now, and go home afterwards. Well, he didn't go home, but continued to ask if it was possible to print on a regular sheet of paper right now. now. Now I, knowing the tricks of Xerox, said that no, double-sided printing of business cards will not work, and the color will definitely not be the same. He continued to insist that he needed these stupid business cards and asked how long it would take me to adjust this layout, to which he received a direct answer: none. I will not be doing it, especially now. But even after that, he did not calm down and asked to make him at least one-sided. To finally make him go away, I even printed him a couple of sheets of his business cards on plain paper. Now let me clarify, I don't mind getting into a person's situation if they urgently need to do something, or even just to help them out even if my working hours are over, but this one came with a blissful smile and a pile of questions, not giving a single care about the fact that it was not my working hours. What really got me was when he started asking irrelevant questions. Stuff like, where did you go to college? And again, nothing wrong with small talk, but not at 10 o'clock p.m. I realize he's a total jerk, and at this pace he's going to sit here until he's tongue-tied or ends up staying to hit on me. I asked him if he would like to take these papers, which by the way, of course he didn't like the color, and he said no. So I just pointed to the door with a straight hand and I said goodbye. And I honestly hope I don't deal with that guy ever again. I love this story for a few reasons, but the biggest one is the fact that you decided, no, I'm not going to stay here past hours and deal with your garbage. So that means you either have really good managers who let you kind of like function on your own, or you just don't care and you're like, look, I'm not dealing with this. Because both sides of this coin are awesome, and I love this about this story. Because I've been in situations where I have managers who are like, no, you have to stay and help them out. And it's like, dude, it's 10 o'clock at night. Are you kidding me right now? I want to go home. But the fact that you told this guy, okay, take a hike and leave, I cannot help you right now, that is hilarious to me, and it's very well deserved. And I personally have the same attitude as the original poster. If there really is some kind of like emergency and they need these business cards like right away, then sure, you help them out and you get it done. But I think this guy was literally just wasting everybody's time, and that is super annoying. So good for you for getting this done, because if I was in your shoes, I would have tried to do the exact same thing. I pay my brother $100,000 a year while also giving him the freedom to choose his own hours and do his work at his own pace. But even still, he constantly complains, leaving me in a position where I am literally questioning everything. Here's what happened. So I spent the last 7 years building my business to support myself initially, and now my brother. He has had a lot of mental health struggles in his 20s, but he pushed through it. He left a stable white-collar job he hated and started a $12 an hour retail gig right before the pandemic. He got furloughed, and I happened to get a call for a dream job I couldn't refuse. And I spent the next 3 months between training my brother and onboarding for this new company. 4 years later, and it didn't work out, and we are working together again. Now, you would think he would be grateful, but I wouldn't be posting here if he was, now would I? He makes $100,000 a year doing work that should take 6 hours a day at max. Now, I don't tell him when to work, I don't restrict his time off, and he chooses what orders he wants to accept or reject. He has the ability to make $150,000 a year if he wanted to put in a full day's work. Now, sounds great, right? Well, no, that's wrong. He constantly complains. He has to respond to client inquiries from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. But because he's so busy, he needs my help, despite the fact that I already answer all messages outside of business hours and on weekends. If he sees that a message hasn't been responded to in an hour, and I said I was helping that day, he berates me for not communicating that I'm online and accuses me of not doing my job. He constantly tells me that I don't care about the business. All the while, I'm literally completing double his workload, covering 3 times more hours of client chats. He has told me I need to tell him if I'm not going to be available and when I'm going to be offline, even though my schedule has zero impact on his responsibilities or his expectations as an employee. I'm really frustrated. I'm feeling like the actual roles here are reversed, and in reality, he's just a super entitled brat. What should I do? Wow, your brother gets paid $100,000 a year, and he wants to sit there and complain? Not to mention the fact that he could be making more money if he put in a full days of work. Like, this guy just sounds straight up lazy. Like, I'm sorry, that is so unbelievably toxic. So I know if I was the owner of this company and I had a brother working like this, I would tell him straight up, listen, if you don't like what's going on, or if you can't handle your job, then please, by all means, find something else. Like, I know plenty of people who would love to have a job like that, where they set their own hours, they're not being micromanaged, and they can make 6 figures in a year. Like, are you serious right now? That's a dream. Not to mention the fact that he can make more money than his like standard paycheck. So yeah, hopefully your brother sees the light of day and realizes that he has a dream job right now, because he can either get it together and figure his life out, or he could easily find himself getting fired from this job. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not giving a Karen customer the sandwich that she deserved? Because this lady literally complained over nothing, and I'm honestly wondering if I'm gonna have a job at the end of the day. Here's what happened. So I work at a small family-owned deli. It's a cozy spot and we pride ourselves on good food and good service. One day during the lunch rush, a woman, who I will refer to as Karen, comes in with her kid. She immediately immediately starts inspecting the sandwiches on the counter like she's at a museum. But honestly, whatever. I'm used to picky customers, so this isn't unusual. She orders a turkey sandwich, but when I ask if she wants it toasted, she snaps at me and says, "No, I don't want it toasted. I want it fresh, not burnt." I assure her that our bread is always fresh, and we don't toast unless specifically asked for it. She's calm for a second, but then she eyes the deli meats and says, "I want my turkey sliced thinner, like really thin. Is that too much to ask?" I look at her a little surprised because our turkey is already sliced pretty thin, but I nod and I tell her I'll pass the request along to the slicer. I wrap up the sandwich and I hand it to her, but then she suddenly starts waving her hands dramatically. "This is not what I asked for," she exclaims, causing the entire line of customers to turn and look. Now I'm just standing there thinking, what could possibly be wrong? She then points at the sandwich. "This turkey is way too thick. Do you not know how to make a sandwich?" Now at this point, I'm trying to stay professional, but I can't help but feel a little frustrated. I know the turkey isn't thick, but I ask her, "Would you like me to remake it with thinner slices?" She then lets out a huff. "No, I want to talk to your manager. This is ridiculous." So I go to the back and I tell my manager, who's already heard the whole ordeal. She then walks out to confront this Karen. She then starts screaming, "This is terrible customer service. I should be getting the best sandwich of my life for what I paid for." Now my manager is super chill, but when Karen starts yelling, my manager just nods and calmly says, "I'm sorry you're upset. We can remake your sandwich or refund you. Which would you prefer?" The Karen's face then turns red. "I want a refund, and I'm telling all my friends about how bad this place is. You don't know how to make a sandwich. I want your store shut down." My manager doesn't even flinch. She gives the Karen her full refund and says, "I'm sorry we couldn't meet your expectations, and I hope you find a place that better suits you." As the Karen storms out, I hear muttering, "I'm going to make sure this place never survives." Now the best part about this is that one of the regulars who had been watching the whole scene said to me, "Hey, don't worry, kid. You can't please everybody. Some people just need a good sandwich to chew on instead of drama." And after they said that, we all had a really good laugh, and it definitely lightened the mood. Honestly, it was one of those days where I just had to remind myself that not everyone gets their way, and sometimes people just need a moment to be heard, even if it's over a sandwich. Yeah, I've dealt with people like this before, and honestly, it is so weird. It's almost like they want to be upset over something, and it's like, okay, I guess if I'm the person to get yelled at, go for it. It's never fair, and it's never something you want to deal with, but the Karen in this story kind of fits that bill. So good for you for the way you handled it, because you honestly didn't do anything wrong. Am I the jerk for watching my best friend's favorite show after she told me all about it and then told me not to watch it? Here's what happened. Okay, so I want to watch my best friend's favorite show at the moment after she kept talking to me about it, and I eventually decided that I wanted to check it out. When I told her I wanted to, she told me not to, as she likes to keep her favorite things private to her so they feel more special and personal, and so I don't potentially criticize them, because she says any criticism will ruin it for her. And as a side note, I have a long history of being a bit heavy-handed with criticizing, to be completely honest, but I'm a lot better now than I used to be. For a bit more context, me and my friend are pretty much each other's only friends, just because we're both fairly weird and kind of socially awkward, and just don't go out and meet new people much, and both have a fair share of flaws which we don't mind about each other, and as a result have been friends for about 6 years. We both like anime and talk about it quite a lot, and she's been talking to me about this new one for a couple of months, all the way to the point where I wanted to go watch it and see if I'd like it as well. My friend has a weird thing, however, that she likes to keep her most favorite things personal to herself, so that they feel more unique and special for her, which I'm normally fine with, as we'll still talk and yap about them anyways, even if I haven't seen them. This show is one of these things that she likes to keep personal, and yet we still keep on talking about it, and she shows me clips since I'm the only person that she can really share them with. Eventually, all of this has convinced me to watch it, but she's always insisting that I don't, and we've been through this specific debate a couple of times now, but we still keep yapping about the show happily anyways. Despite that, I have started to watch it, as I don't really want to let her just gatekeep it from me, and generally, I don't think media or culture is something that should be kept behind any bars. It's also not even about embarrassment either, as she never would have talked to me about it so much, and from everything I've seen of it so far, it's completely fine considering how well we know each other. I probably won't ever tell her I've watched it at all, as I know that she'll get upset by it, having known her for like 6 years now, and it'll be this whole ordeal that will just be a pain and mean nothing eventually. This is the only time it's really come to me actually wanting to watch, and her wanting to gatekeep, and the only thing I'm really curious about is if other people think that I'm being a jerk by not listening to her, or if she's just gatekeeping the show and I shouldn't care about it. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I really don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think everybody sucks in this story. The fact that the friend is trying to gatekeep this show, in my opinion, is really weird, but also it sounds like the original poster is really annoying about anything that they're shown. They're probably super obnoxious about their criticism about everything, and they kind of like kill the vibe when it comes to anything that someone else might enjoy. So to that end, I can't blame your friend for being like, no, please don't watch it. This is like the one good thing I have left that you haven't touched. But that also doesn't excuse your friend from like really gatekeeping this and being like, no, you're not allowed to watch this. Like both of the people in this story really need to like figure their lives out because this is not normal behavior. So yeah, in my opinion, I think everybody sucks in this story. My entitled mother wants me to come back home and take care of her, despite the fact that she's treated me poorly my entire life. Here's what happened. So my mother, who adopted me when I was 6 years old, emotionally mistreated me and neglected me throughout my childhood. Most of my memories are filled with babysitters while she was living it up, school bullying and therapist, while she refused to believe that any of my problems stem from my relationship with her. I've been slowly working through my issues with a therapist and now live several hours away from her, and I work a full-time job as a news producer. As my mother has grown older, she's now become a shell of who she used to be. She is now a hermit, she does nothing, she loves being the victim, and she is condescending and very judgmental. She has an abundance of loyal friends who think she's a godsend, but all know there's something not quite right about her. On Sunday, I had to call 911 for her because she said she was feeling dizzy and had the sweats. After testing at the hospital, they found that she had a small ulcer that had caused minor bleeding. I've been in communication with the hospital this entire time, and her best friend of over 36 years, who lives about an hour away, was able to drive down to be with her. The ulcer has since been attributed to stress, bad dieting, and lack of exercise. Her friends and I have talked to her about this so many times, I honestly just don't even bother anymore. Aside from some discomfort, the hospital has her on an IV and will send her home with a prescription after an evaluation. When I spoke to my mother on the phone, she was very frustrated and complained about the situation. She also doesn't seem to understand that she's actually improving and said she wished that I could be there. Her friend also mentioned that my mother is adamant that she's not going home until she feels 100%, even if the doctor tells her that she can go home. But feeling 100% is unrealistic, especially at that age. Her friend told me that my mother needs to push herself more instead of just sitting around and waiting to feel 100% better. Her friend's doing as much as she can for my mother, but she can only stay until next Monday. My mother is perfectly mobile, and aside from this blip, she is in much better shape than a lot of people her age, and she absolutely could still eat better and be more active. If she fails the evaluation, then the hospital can suggest a rehabilitation clinic for her to go to. She also has several neighbors who are more than happy and have helped a great deal since she was put in the hospital. At this point, the only thing holding my mother back, it seems, is being home alone, despite that being something that she actually preferred before this incident. Again, her friend is staying until this Sunday, so even if my mother is released tomorrow, her friend will be there for another 4 days, and then my godfather and his friend will come and visit afterwards. But then there's the neighbors who are actively trying to get my mother to reach out to them for help. I have my own serious health problems that I'm trying to get under control, and I already work a high-stress job. The idea of taking time off indefinitely that I just don't have, to go back home and having to put myself under more stress, would honestly crush me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, it really sounds like your mom needs like professional help, because from the sounds of it, you're not able to make this kind of sacrifice for her. You've got a lot going on, and it's not like you don't care, it's just that you don't have time. So hopefully this all works out for you, because this sounds incredibly messy. The disastrous new owners of a restaurant I used to work at drove out the hardworking staff of 3 years in a matter of days, and I'm honestly so glad that I don't work there anymore. Here's what happened. Okay, so my bar had to change its name for legal reasons, and they decided to rebrand into a sports bar with another company. My service team had been working together for 3 years since we opened the place, and said we would all come back to give it a shot. We were told to file for unemployment for a month and a half while they revamped, and that we would be hired right back. The general manager texted on a Saturday near that proposed opening date that they wanted people in Sunday afternoon. No email, but instead just an Android text less than 24 hours in advance. I was out of town, but I showed up a couple of days later, and I was told we'd be doing training, so I dressed appropriately. I then showed up to a restaurant in disarray and over 20 new TVs, and clearly training would be accompanied by some manual labor first. The new owner asked me to clean out some trash cans, saying I'd wash them out to start the day, and then clean them at the end of the day. I started looking for the hose outside, and he told me that I'd need to soap them up first. As I was finishing, they asked me to wipe down the box fan. Then they asked me to spray paint some high chairs. I asked him for a mask, and I was then pointed to 2 used masks. I said I didn't want to use a used mask, and then I asked if I could go grab one from the first aid kit. I was then told this was not a good idea and was pointed back towards the used mask. In the midst of this, I was asked to clean out the box fan again. Mind you, this was a box fan that we had had for nearly 2 years that had a broken on-off switch, which I was spending more time at minimum wage to clean than it would cost to buy a new fan. Afterwards, my coworkers and I finished our tasks, and we were mumbling together about several concerning things and standing around while everyone else was eating lunch and tasting beer. The owner then came up to us and said the lean or clean thing with clenched fists. us. Barely containing his anger, he told us to find something else to do. I asked if he wanted us to taste the beer, and he said no as he retorted smugly. I then heard him scream at one of the employees from his company shortly thereafter about a piece of paper that he himself had lost. While we had planned to give it a week, my coworkers and I met up and had a tough time tabulating the red flags, leading to people to finally admit that it was time to move on. Now, I thought I would stick it out for a couple more days, and I was even told for 2 successive days that we were doing training, but that just didn't end up happening. Just more general labor. We tasted some leftover food, but still not enough tables were ready. With 1 day before an invited prepaid event and 3 days before a soft opening with no food menu, no drink menu, or beer list, I realized that they were taking advantage of training to do a catering event, and I decided to leave. I then heard they hadn't hired any other service staff, and they were betting it all on us. But now that place is apparently a miserable revolving door, and honestly, I'm glad I got out of there. Yeah, that place sounds miserable, and I don't blame you for a second for quitting, because anyone who's going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to be doing some training, and then expects you to do manual labor is not someone you ever want to work for. My entitled roommate allows her obnoxious friend into our house, who then decides to be the rudest person on planet Earth. But after she started attacking all of us consistently and constantly, I finally snapped and put my foot down, demanding that she get out of our apartment and never come back, resulting in one of the biggest blowups in my friend group that I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. During one of my college programs at a very popular theme park in Florida, you know, a magical rat planet of sorts, I live with some roommates. The program offered housing, and at the time they had 4 apartment complexes. One was for foreign college students, and the other 3 were for North American college programmers or CPs. Each apartment came with a different price tag that they automatically snatched from our ridiculous work checks weekly. Now, the newest and nicest apartments came with 2 refrigerators, but it was expensive. The second most expensive was quiet and close to the foreign college student complex, and then there was the oldest one, the cheapest one known as the party place. It was considered the hood or the ghetto of CP housing. Keep in mind, it had 2 pools, one with a hot tub, a gym, a tennis court, and was where the CP bus station for the car list was located. It was also in walking distance to multiple stores and restaurants. Now, no matter what apartment we chose, we had to share rooms with one other person, so I opted to save money, meaning that I chose the cheapest apartment. I had extended my program with a prior roommate and friend, so we decided to share rooms. For the sake of the story, I'll call her Kendra. Kendra and I also then met 3 women who we will call Jamie, Kelly, and Haley. We had room for one more roommate as it was a 3-bedroom, and after a month, we received our new roommate who I will call Shonda. Shonda was older but still in her 20s. She also had 2 younger children back in her state, namely a son and a daughter. We asked her if she was cool to leave her children for a year, so she explained that she had them young and never got to explore herself or be free. So we decided to mind our own business because it definitely was not our business. Now, it's important to note that Shonda meant what she said and was definitely some version of the word free. A week didn't pass where she wasn't drunk, clubbing, partying, or staying over some random dude's house. But again, we just minded our own business. Shonda then made friends with a girl from her job who I will call Amanda. Now, Amanda partied hard as well. And one day, Shonda and Amanda got into a drunken brawl in an alleyway behind a club. Shonda then complained to us about Amanda and her attitude. And while we did listen, we also remained silent because we were minding our own business. Now, Haley is Muslim, and due to this, we had a rule that guests were to be announced before coming in so that she could dress appropriately if need be. It didn't matter if it was a male or female. All guests were to be announced. And you know what? We all follow this except for Shonda, who just randomly showed up with Amanda one day. Now, Amanda is female, so Haley was okay with it, but we were all still irritated. Anyways, it was Friday and they were getting ready to go out. Amanda then walked in and we were confused because the last we heard, her and Shonda had had a falling out again, to which we just minded our own business. Amanda then started judging our apartment's layout, asking why we had it set up like that. We then explained that we enjoyed changing it up since all the apartments had literally the same decor. Shonda was in her room showering and getting dressed, while Amanda continued being rude to us in the living room. Amanda then asked how to get down to the downtown area of the magical rat planet. My roommate Jamie then said, well, if you take the F bus, it will take you right there. Amanda then responded by saying, I already know that. I meant by car. I don't ride the bus. Now, it's important to know that Jamie is the kind of person that will throw hands, and it showed in her face. Jamie remained quiet though, and kept typing on her laptop. Haley then asked Amanda what they had planned, and she, with an attitude, said they were going downtown and then clubbing. Some other things were also said that made Haley laugh. Now, Haley was annoying. She was very loud, boisterous. She scream-talked and laughed very loudly. Most people found her to be a lot, and although we hung out occasionally, I usually kept my distance as I had and have severe anxiety, and she had that kind of personality personality that really spiked it. Well, Haley started laughing loudly, and I mean full-on cackling, and Amanda just looked on in disgust. She then shouted and said, "Oh my god, can you shut up?" Now once that happened, Haley stopped laughing, and my roommates and I all looked at her, and you know what? At that moment, I had had enough. I calmly but firmly spoke up and said the following: "You need to leave." Amanda looked at me and said, "What?" I then repeated myself when I said, "You need to leave our apartment now." Amanda, thinking I was joking, laughed at me and said, "But why?" I looked at her and I said, "You've literally been rude to everyone since you walked in. You need to leave now." Amanda then tried to double back and say, "But she was annoying and loud." But I responded and said, "This is her home. She pays rent here and you don't. She has a right to be loud in her own home. Get out." I opened the front door and Amanda walked outside. Shonda then comes running from the back asking what happened. And we explain everything and I tell her Amanda isn't allowed in the apartment anymore. The other roommates also agree with this and Shonda is furious. The next day, Shonda asked for a roommate meeting where she says how we treated her friend was wrong. I asked her, didn't she herself have a fight with Amanda due to her attitude a few weeks prior? But then Shonda said, "Oh, we made up." Well, my roommates and I told her Amanda still wasn't allowed over as she was rude. About a week later, Amanda came over but stayed on the porch. She knocked on the door and when I answered the door, she apologized. I thanked her for the apology and she asked if it was okay if she could come in now. But when I turned and asked my roommates, they still said no, she can't come in. Well, Shonda was angry and put in an apartment transfer a week later. She left stating that she couldn't live where her friends weren't welcomed, and honestly, we just simply didn't care, because Shonda was just as obnoxious as her friend Amanda. Okay, first of all, Shonda is literally one of the worst people on planet Earth. You mean to tell me that she left her kids to go work at Disney for a year? And yeah, they're talking about Disney, I think it's pretty obvious in this story. But like seriously, what kind of awful mother are you? If you're gonna have kids, then congratulations, you need to take care of them. You can't just abandon them and be like, I need to explore and find myself. It's like, no, you need to find a job and take care of the kids. Like, what are you doing? This is no time for partying. You need to buckle down and figure your life out. So honestly, good for you for putting Shonda in her place as well as Amanda, because both of them were obnoxious, and I don't blame you for kicking Amanda out in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled coworker pesters me repeatedly, stating that he needs a new phone only after he found out that we're getting new phones in the office. So I decided to maliciously comply by turning this entire scenario right back at him, and doing it in such a way where he can't say anything about it. Here's what happened. So there's always this one person that is so very important that he always needs to tell everybody how important he is, and how urgent his or her request truly is. Usually this goes hand in hand with utter incompetence and a generally nasty attitude. And this story is about one such person. So we were about to buy new work phones, and it definitely was time for an upgrade. The iPhones that the higher-ups thought were suitable for work were even 5 years ago better toys. The batteries drained quickly and never gave our users a really good experience. Well, we decided to wait until the newer version would come out, but news got around very quickly. Ever since the first rumor about a new shiny toy got around, there was this one salesperson who came into my office twice a week just to complain about his phone and how he desperately needed a new phone and how important it was for him to get a new phone as soon as possible. And no, for the record, he did not need it more than our guys out in the field, but boy, did he really cry about the thing. In the last 3 weeks, he went to our boss 3 times to complain that we apparently did not want to give him a new phone. Well, my boss rolled his eyes and suggested that we do something. Well, we had this one iPhone 13, which was still new in the box, and we had that for emergencies. So last Thursday, as he came in again to whine about his awful phone, I was very glad to help him out, as his phone was so bad, and he just needed a new phone so badly, and ironically enough, we could provide him a new phone immediately. Well, he was quite obviously not happy that he was getting the old iPhone 13, but as he had complained so loudly, and the CEO himself had greenlit this new phone for him, there was nothing that he could do other than to clench his fist and pretend to be happy that his severe situation was taken care of. After that, we informed the CEO that the situation was settled, and he just smiled and ordered new iPhones for everybody in the office the exact same day. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where it's like, look, you're gonna get a phone eventually, but if you keep complaining, you're gonna get something that you probably don't want. And this story is proof that yes, that absolutely can happen. It is so unbelievably frustrating to deal with people who complain like this, where they act like they're in such a dire circumstance and they need help immediately. But in reality, they're just trying to work the system and get something that they definitely don't need. So good for you and the CEO for seeing through this garbage and solving this guy's problem in a way that I'm sure he wasn't expecting. My grandmother is a narcissistic weirdo who has consistently ruined every wedding that she's been to, and I'm honestly so sick of her that I seriously don't know what to to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to illustrate how my grandma really is, I'm gonna share some stories from my dad's life. The first one is when my mom and dad got married, and then the second one's with my dad's second marriage. So anyways, my dad was around 27 and my mom was 25, and they've been together for 3 years previously, and they wanted to tie the knot. Now, my grandmother wasn't a big fan of my mom from the very beginning, mostly because my mom didn't let her walk all over her to an extent, but also because my mom had an ex-fiance. It first began when she ruined the proposal. My dad proposed at a nice dinner party with family involved so everybody could be there. My mom knew about the proposal because she picked out the ring, but she just didn't know when it would happen. Well, my entitled grandma thought it would be a good idea and spoiled the proposal by declaring my uncle's deployment date right afterwards. Well, her plan didn't work and she got chewed out by my dad afterwards. However, throughout the entire dinner, she was making sly comments about the ring being too fancy and my mom being shallow about wanting such a nice ring. Now, I've seen the ring. It's one diamond with a twist band on it. It's far from being big and very far from being fancy. And after my mom didn't react to the ring, she began to go after my mom's weight. The dinner was a nightmare, and when she and my dad went home, they didn't talk much. And then the planning went straight to Hades. My mom and dad wanted to be married within a year of the proposal, mostly due to financial reasons, because my mom wanted to start having children. But my grandma disagreed with this. They were moving too fast, and when my mom mentioned her plan for children, all of a sudden she was too old to begin having children, and that if she wanted children, she should have stayed with her fiance instead of marrying her son. Keep in mind, my mom was 25. If they got married, she would be 26. And then my entitled grandma began to tell her to stop with her career because it would be easier to just be a stay-at-home wife, especially if she wanted kids. Now, my mom did not stop her pursuit in her career. Well, my mom ended up just ignoring her for the most part, ignoring phone calls, text messages, and any kind of message, which caused my entitled grandma to have a conniption fit and go crying to my dad, who basically only responded by saying, okay. Her behavior continued throughout wedding planning, and everything had to be her way or the highway. The church was never right. The arch, the date, the wedding list. She tried to convince my parents to push back their wedding just to fit her and her friend's schedule. And when my mom denied her friends coming, she threatened not to come either. Well, my parents budged only slightly, mostly with the church because my mom wasn't attached to any church for the most part. My grandma tried to convince them to get married in her church, but my dad nor my mom lived anywhere close to her. My parents lived in Michigan, while my grandma lived in Wisconsin. The church was also incredibly small, as it was for a town of under 2,000 people. And while my mom and dad had a small wedding of only family and a handful of friends, it would not have fit my mom's family. My grandma complained and moaned about not having the wedding at her church. That is until my grandfather shut her up, saying that he would go without her. Wedding dress shopping came around, and my mom wanted simple, pale colors for bridesmaids, with the wedding party and any guest wearing a couple of neutral colors. The wedding party was pale greens and pinks to accent her dress, and she had a beautiful dress. It was laced up with a puffy skirt and a beautiful veil, all with a corset with flowy sleeves. But of course, my grandma did not like the dress. My mom didn't invite her to wedding dress shopping, and neither did she invite her own mother, but that's because she lived in Florida, and just had her bridesmaids there along with her. Well, my grandma was infuriated about this. How dare she not invite her mother-in-law? And wouldn't you know it, my aunt also never invited her to go wedding dress shopping either. She said that she always dreamed of picking out a dress for her daughters or her daughter-in-law. My mom broke her heart. And then when she saw the dress, her lips pursed and her eyes widened. She began to tear into the dress, saying that it made my mom look like a lady of the night, and how dare she wear white and lie to God. She said the dress looked like it came out of a dumpster, and the dress didn't flatter her, and she looked like a sausage. My mom was so close to returning the dress because she no longer felt beautiful in the dress that she picked out. That is until my other grandmother chimed in and dug into my entitled grandmother and made her go cry to my dad like a beaten puppy. My entitled grandma cooled down for a while, and she didn't go after my mom while the planning was still going on, but instead she went after my dad. Now, my dad for the most part has always been the quiet, stoic type. His way of dealing with his mom is agreeing with her but not doing what she says. For example, she wanted to have this selection of wine and beer, and my dad just said okay, but didn't even go with her choices. She would constantly be barking orders, but he would always just agree with her and then never do it. Now, this method was rather effective at times. However, her nagging started to get worse as she felt like she was getting her way. She became more bold and started calling caterers and flower arrangers just to try and change the plans around. But my mom and dad told them ahead of time, don't change anything unless you hear it from us. After a few calls of fighting, arguing, and shouting, she finally stopped, mostly because my dad threatened to uninvite her if she kept going. Her nagging went from the wedding workers all the way to him. She nagged him so much that he had to go to the emergency room for severe migraines and headaches twice. Finally, the wedding came around, and it was going to happen the way my parents want. want. She could make petty comments or remarks about things, but she wasn't going to ruin this day for mom. Well, as you all know, she's a pain in the neck, and you could probably have seen this a mile away, but she wore a wedding dress to the wedding. In fact, my entitled grandma wore the same wedding dress she wanted my mom to wear, and she even came in with a little entourage of guests in wedding dresses. My dad took one look at them, walked away, and had her friends kicked out. Now, my entitled grandmother stayed because trying to get her kicked out would cause the cops to be called and more headaches than they would like. The wedding continued, and my entitled grandma wasn't allowed in any photos. And that was just my dad's first wedding. My mom says divorcing my father was such a relief because she could finally get away from his awful mother. My dad, on the other hand, is stuck with her until she passes away, and so is his new wife, who is my stepmom. Now, my dad and my stepmother got engaged in the year of 2020 during the New Year's. They had planned on a one-year plan, mostly because they wanted to get it over with since they've been together for 8 or 9 years already, and getting married at this point was a formality to tie things together. When they announced the date, they announced it to be on my entitled grandmother's birthday, and at first she was ecstatic, but then she realized that her birthday would have to be shared. In private, she complained to her gaggle of cronies about having the wedding on her birthday, but then COVID hit and the wedding got pushed back until about 2022 for a different date, and instead it landed on my stepmom's mother's birthday. Her mom had a long past and figured that this was a good way to include her. Well, this ensured the usual nagging. How dare she make it about her mother? My dad at this point grew a backbone and began putting his mom in her place. Perhaps it was his sobriety, or perhaps it was because he's been through one wedding and he is not doing it for a third time. My entitled grandmother tried to do the usual butt-in thing and make things all about her. It just simply had to be her way. But with a few tongue lashes, it stopped. Well, that is until it came to me. Over COVID, I gained about 50 pounds due to stress and pain. I had a lot going on that resulted in me being overweight. I have since been turning that weight into muscle, but I also still had a lot of muscle definition back then too. In fact, I had huge swimmer shoulders that made it difficult to find some dresses. My stepmom wanted simple black dresses. We could decide the style, but it just had to be black with open shoulders. I corresponded with my stepsister to see what she would wear, and we would get the same dress. Well, unsurprisingly, my entitled grandmother wanted me to get a different dress. A dress that was frilly. A dress that wasn't black, but was rather gold and was cream. Well, I immediately declined this opposition. I knew what she was trying to do. The only reason she was even dress shopping with me was because I was 13, couldn't drive, and didn't have my stepmom's card like she did. Well, I picked out the same dress my stepsister did, and I got it in black. They needed to special order it because they didn't have my size. They had one smaller and one bigger, so I was able to see what it would look like approximately. My entitled grandmother did not like the dress. It was a simple flowy skirt that hit the ankles with a really pretty design, and for the most part, it was really modest. The only thing really shown was my face and my arms. Well, my entitled grandmother didn't like that my arms could be shown because people would see my strawberry skin, my muscles, and it made me look like a man. Apparently, it made me look like a log and I was too fat for it. While she put me down, I just didn't care, and I sent it to my stepmom and she just loved it. I then told my entitled grandmother that this is what we're going with, and that was it. Well, when we tried to put in the order ticket, she tried to order a different style in the color that she wanted. Well, I already talked with a worker and I told them, hey, she's gonna try and pull this weird stunt, but just go ahead and put down what I say and not what she says, because she will ruin this wedding. Well, I think the worker didn't take it seriously at first until she started seeing how my grandmother was acting. Well, finally, the dress shopping was done, and then it was shoe shopping for a pair of flats. My stepmother had a very specific style in mind, black flats with a pointed toe. And honestly, in general, I do have trouble finding shoes. For reference, I'm a size 6 in women's with wide feet. So we had to go to 3 different places just to find the shoes. And the entire time, my grandmother was angry and made weird comments about my feet. I don't know why she was angry, like I have my dad's fat feet and my mom's shoe size. She finds the weirdest things to comment about. After shopping around, my grandmother wanted to go to lunch, even though I didn't, so I told her that I had an obligation. She then proceeded to call me a disappointment for not thinking of my grandmother, and that she hasn't seen me in a while, and that she deserves to have dinner with her grandchild. So you know what? I just walked home. I didn't want to deal with her, and the shopping plaza we went to was barely a mile away. A few weeks later, my dress came in, and we needed to go back to get it hemmed. I planned on just going with my mom, but in true entitled grandmother fashion, she butted in and took me instead. But I just simply bowed my head and took things in stride. During that time, I was experimenting with my hair, and I talked to my stepmother about how she wanted my hair because I planned on taking a lot of length off and dyeing my hair. Now, my stepmother was always like, of course, do whatever you want. And so I got this boyish cut, and I had it dyed to a cool red color to match my mom. Well, of course, my grandmother did not like this. She said that I looked even more like a man. And I was like, what are you talking about? While also saying, well, how dare you do something so drastic with your hair? You need to consult me first. I took at her comments about my hair in stride and I just ignored her. Well, finally, I didn't have to see her until the wedding once everything was done with. And eventually the wedding came around. My grandmother complained about the decorations for a little while commenting about how everything is too vintage. The hotel wasn't a church. And how dare she not get married in a church? But again, I just ignored the comments. And I didn't bother telling my dad or my stepmom because I just wanted things to go smoothly and not to bother them with anything. We went out to get our hair done, and while I was in the seat, I could hear my grandmother commenting about how I destroyed my hair, only for my stepmom to shut her up and change the subject entirely. During the wedding day, everything was relatively quiet with her. A few comments here and there, but she was cordial and almost nice. When it came time to put the dress on, etc., we learned that we got me the wrong size pantyhose. We accidentally got the child sizes and not a woman's large size. And I was just gonna go without it, since the skirt was long enough where no one would notice. But then my grandma offered me a pair of hers with a comment of saying, I highly doubt they'll fit someone your size, but you can try. And unfortunately, they fit. The wedding thankfully went smoothly. She didn't wear white, but she dressed like she was going to a funeral and was somehow in mourning and not attending her son's wedding. The reception came around and we ate, and she made a few comments about me not being ladylike and how I should have got the salmon and not the steak. The night went on a bit quietly, and the reception was to go until about 11 o'clock with an hour for cleanup. One thing about me is that I tend to go to bed early at around 8 o'clock or even 9 o'clock. We were staying in the actual hotel, so it's not like we had to walk or drive. Now, I mentioned wanting to go back up to the room to go sleep, but my grandma denied me. Eventually, 10:30 came around, and admittedly, I was cranky and very tired. I'd been awake since about 5:30, and I wanted to go to bed. My entitled grandmother eventually came around, and she said that I ought to be grateful to be a part of this wedding, and that I should learn to be more ladylike. She then said that I should learn to just suck things up. Well, it took my crying and begging to go to bed for my stepmom to step in and tell her to give me a room key so that I could go to bed. I finally changed and I went to sleep, only to have the worst night's sleep of my life because my grandmother kept waking me up. She woke me up when she came in at 11 to come help clean things up. I then went down, cleaned things up, and went right back to sleep. But then she woke me up almost every single hour of the night to turn around or to tell me to stop snoring. By the end of it, I was so tired, and I slept the entire 7.5-hour car ride back home. Now, apart from her, everything else in the wedding was beautiful and fantastic, and I honestly hope I don't have to deal with her in the future because the way she acts is truly obnoxious. Yeah, your grandma sounds like a piece of work. For those who are unfamiliar, this is some more contextual backstory to a story we've covered previously on the channel, and now that we have the full picture, like honestly, I can't blame anybody for not wanting that lady around. She showed up to your dad's wedding in white, and then she literally tried to change everything about every wedding that she's been to. And it's like, dude, how obnoxious can you possibly get? Because your grandmother sounds like a piece of work, and hopefully for your sake, I hope you don't have to deal with her anytime soon as well. Today, I messed up by sending my boss a spicy text message that was meant for my boyfriend. And now I'm worried that I might be losing my job because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this literally just happened, and I'm still debating whether to quit my job and move to another country. Maybe even change my name too. For a bit of backstory, my boyfriend and I have been dating for about a year, and we have this ongoing habit of sending flirty and sometimes slightly suggestive text messages throughout the day. Nothing too wild, just cute little messages to keep things fun. Well, that is until today. I was at work absolutely drowning in emails, and my boss had just messaged me about a project deadline. My stress levels were really high, but in the middle of all that chaos, my boyfriend texted me something really sweet. He said to me, "I'm thinking about you and I can't wait to see you tonight." So in my stressed out multitasking mess of a brain, I quickly typed out a reply. "I was just thinking about you too. Can't wait to get my hands on you later." Now this is innocent enough, right? Well, the problem is that instead of sending it to my boyfriend, I sent it to my boss. My 45-year-old, very serious, no-nonsense boss. Now let me tell you something. There's a very specific kind of panic that hits when you realize you've just sent something wildly inappropriate to the worst person possible. It's a mix of sheer terror, immediate regret, and the overwhelming desire to disappear into thin air. As soon as I saw the name at the top of the message, my soul left my body. I stared at my phone, praying that by some miracle, the message hadn't actually gone through. Maybe my phone glitched, or maybe I imagined it. But no, it delivered. I then immediately put my phone on airplane mode, hoping it would somehow delete itself from existence. And spoiler alert, that's not how technology works. It's at this point I had two choices. My first one was to pretend like nothing happened and go on with my life as if I didn't just ruin my career. My second option is quit my job, move to a remote island, and start a new life as a coconut farmer. While I was contemplating my options, my boss, who never replies instantly, decided this was the moment moment to be lightning fast. My boss said to me, "Wrong person?" And at this point, I think my soul actually left my body for real. There was no saving this. There was no taking it back. I had two choices. I could own up to it and apologize, or just fake my own death. I went with option number one, even though the second one was very tempting, and I immediately sent back, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was meant for someone else. Please ignore it." My boss then left me on red for 10 minutes. And let me tell you something, 10 minutes in this situation feels like 10 years. I was convinced my career was over, that HR was typing up my termination letter, that security was on their way to escort me out of the building. He then finally replied, "Understood. Let's keep personal messages out of work communication." And that's it. No laughing it off, no awkward joke to ease the tension, just a cold professional warning. If I wasn't dying of embarrassment before, I was fully deceased now. The rest of the day was absolute torture. I avoided making eye contact with him, I kept my head down, and even considered throwing my phone into a river. Every time he walked to my desk, I felt my entire body heat up with secondhand embarrassment. And the worst part about it, I have a meeting with him tomorrow one-on-one. I do not know how I'm gonna sit across from him and discuss workflow strategies like I didn't just tell him I wanted to get my hands on him. I might have to call in sick or even quit or simply disappear, because right now I don't know what to do. Oh boy, this really is a massive mess up. I can only imagine what that must feel like. First of all, it was clearly an accident. You clearly sent the wrong thing to the wrong person, and if this guy doesn't understand that, then he really is a complete jerk. But also, I think it's important to know that, you know what, these things do happen. Like, you are not the first person in the universe for this to happen to. So if anything, I would definitely hold on to that and be like, okay, this is fine, I messed up, but like, it's not the end of the world. But hopefully all this works out for you, because I can only imagine what that one-on-one conversation is gonna be like. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for allegedly stooping to a new low by kicking my neighbor's garbage bins out of the way whenever she leaves it in front of my driveway? Because right now I kind of feel a little bit guilty, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my new neighbor moved in and she was nice enough at first, but she has a serious problem with how she handles garbage days. I'm not sure how in the world one woman can create so much garbage. She will have her bins out, but it's always overfilling. Many times I've come out of my driveway to go to work just to then see a pile spilled over of fresh garbage sitting right in front of my driveway right after the raccoons got to it. Or all of her bins will be blocking my car from leaving. I've spoken to her many times about this, and she always says that she does, and claims it must be getting moved around by the wind or knocked over by the raccoons. Now, there is no way in the world all that garbage is getting blown around by the wind. The raccoon part, I believe, but there are locks on the garbage bins for a reason, and if you can't close it because there's too much trash, then that's a you problem. Lately, even when I know she's home, she will ignore me at the door. I always back out of my driveway, and I will see bins blocking my path. Now, I tolerate moving them out of my way, even though it really pisses me off every morning. But what I can't tolerate is when raccoons get into her crap, and as I'm backing out, I see piles and piles of garbage blocking my path. I mean, I've had to use a shovel to get it out of the way once. I've been waking up a bit earlier to move her garbage, and the other day I asked myself, why in the world am I going out of my way to help this stupid idiot? I took a good hard look at her bins, and I just kicked them as hard as I could over to her side, and the garbage spilled over into her driveway instead of mine. I've noticed now she is slowly learning to take proper care of her garbage, and sometimes she even puts it on the other side of her driveway. She has been a lot better lately, but not perfect. She sometimes now locks the bin hinges and keeps it on the other side of the street, but whenever I catch it in front of my driveway, I will just kick it back to her side. Well, I told my wife about it, and she said this is so pathetically low of me, but she doesn't have to wake up and deal with someone else's crap, so I don't really expect her to understand. Or maybe I'm a piece of garbage myself, I don't know. I honestly feel like I've done my part being nice, because at this point I honestly just don't care anymore. So am I the jerk because right now I don't know what to do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. This lady is so out of line for even putting her garbage all over your driveway, it's not even funny. And yes, if she's not locking it up correctly, guess what? Anything that happens to it is absolutely her fault. And the fact that you gotta put up with that is so uncalled for. So no, I don't blame you in the slightest for getting upset and kicking those garbage cans over, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I'm convinced that my roommates have been letting someone else sleep in my room while I'm not there, as I continuously find all kinds of items that are not mine scattered about my bedroom. And at this point, I'm incredibly creeped out and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. From 2022 to 2023, I lived with 3 other girls in a college apartment for a year. It was a beautiful apartment and I really miss it. They all had been friends since high school and I needed a place to stay. And upon meeting them, At first, I was excited to get to know new people and experience a good year living with them. The lease began in June of 2022, and from June until November, we all got along just fine. Now, I have a dog sitting business, and it was really picking up at around that time. In November of 2022, my best friend spent the night at said apartment. A few days passed after our sleepover, and I just got back from a dog sitting job. I saw a blanket in my room that was not mine. I asked my best friend if it was hers, and she said no. I then texted the group chat with my roommates, and they all did not claim the blanket. I thought it was weird, so I just tossed it on the couch in the living room for someone to claim. Fast forward maybe a few weeks or something, and I noticed a t-shirt that was not mine in my room. And again, I asked them if it was theirs, but no one collected it. Now, I do not do my laundry at the apartment, as I do live close by, and I just take my stuff home so it never gets mixed up with their stuff. More time passed at this point, and I find women's underwear in my bedroom. Now again, I text the group chat asking whose this is, but no one claims it. I know it's not mine, as it's not the same size as all my other pairs, and I only buy the same size. This was very weird at this point. I've asked them in the past if anyone slept in my room, or even used it to do the deed, if you know what I mean. To be honest, if they asked me ahead of time if their friends could crash in my room, as I'm not there dog sitting sometimes, I would 100% be cool with it. No one has ever stolen anything in my room, but I have found more items in my room that are not mine. I consider getting a camera, but to be honest, if someone is spending some quality time in my room, I do not want that on camera. As I said, no one ever stole anything, so it was never that deep to me, but I was confused why they kept lying. The last item I found was close to the end of our lease, which was in about May of 2023, and it's there that I found an Apple Watch. Now that is not cheap, so when I asked whose it was, no one claimed it. So they really just did not want to admit anything or take back an expensive item that was probably one of their friends. I was so confused and shocked, so I asked the landlord if I could put a lock on my door while also explaining the situation with screenshots of our group chat. Well, the landlord said I could not do that due to the lease agreement, and at this point I was kind of pissed off because I was being gaslit into thinking all these items are mine. One of the girls even said, well, maybe your stuff got mixed in with the wash, but then I told her how I don't do the wash at the apartment, and after that she had nothing else to say. When we finally moved out, I made sure to avoid them at this point because it was just way too awkward. Nothing came out of it, but I think back on it occasionally, and I still could not fathom why they'd let people in my room, and even if it was a mistake, they could have easily just said, oh, sorry, we didn't know that people were in your room, and I would have said, as long as you asked, it's cool with me. So with all that being said, I was in charge of the Wi-Fi for the apartment, and you know what? I turned the Wi-Fi off occasionally whenever this happened. They used the library to do their work or a friend's house, so it's not like they couldn't get their work done, but I was admittedly petty, and I shut the Wi-Fi off on occasion. Oh my gosh, that is so sketchy. Seriously, think about that for a second. These people are hiding some kind of like friend going in and out of your room, and even though this person's leaving an Apple Watch in your room, they're still not fessing up and being like, oh yeah, someone's living in your room while you're not there. Like seriously, that is so sketchy, it's not even funny. So overall, I guess congratulations on getting the Apple Watch, because these roommates were being incredibly sketchy, and if they just told the truth, then all of this could have been figured out. My mother is draining the newly found life out of me in a way that I haven't experienced since my childhood, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my parents should not have had kids. I'm an accident that never should have been given a chance, and I say that despite how hard I'm clinging to life right now. They were unfit then, and they're 1,000 times worse now. But you know what? My mother takes the cake. Before I could barely form memories, she cheated on my dad, and then spent the following 24 years genuinely believing that he was in the wrong. We talked about it around a year ago, and the reason she believes he was at fault is because he begged her to have some kind of trio relationship with a friend of his. She could have said no, and she was practically the boss in their marriage. She did not find it difficult to put him down for everything else, so by no means was she forced into accepting his desire. Well, she did it, fell in love with the other guy, and then started seeing him. But she thinks that she was allowed to because he wanted to have a trio. No matter how much I tell her that's wrong, she works it out in her mind that she's the victim. When she remarried, she did so to beat my father to remarry, not even out of love, and she will admit as much. According to my stepdad, who has no reason to lie 20 years later, he claims that she was on heavy substance use during their marriage. He was in a car accident at one point, and she stole his painkillers to get high, leaving him to suffer. At one point, while she was under the influence, they got into an argument that led to her pushing him down a flight of stairs. So you know what? He left her, and she spent my whole life telling me that he abandoned us. She went insane after that. She was either drinking or doing some substance when she got into a major car accident, which somehow made her worse. And for years, she wasted away, living in filth, not not paying her electric bills, never keeping any food around, not even getting up to take me to school. We ended up homeless quite a few times as well. So after that, I stopped living with her, and she then started guilt-tripping me. But the worst part about this time period is that she started to act a little too nice towards me after a while, almost in a way where she was trying to manipulate me. Now, I didn't pick up on it at the time, but I've had years to process it by now. And trust me, things really took a weird turn where she got a little bit too close to me in a way that was very inappropriate, saying things that were really weird and honestly just giving me a strange vibe. Now, I was and still am very uncomfortable around her, and I think I make that pretty obvious. Fast forward to 2023, and I had been radio silence for years at this point. I was homeless and in a very bad way health-wise, and yet I refused to contact her to beg for help. I mean, I was going to pass away alone in a parking lot, and I had made peace with that. My ex is the one who contacted her for me, and I don't hold any ill will against her for doing that. She did end up saving my life, but my life trap with my mother again has not been good for me at all. For the first 6 months, I felt like I needed to hold my tongue because she was the one more or less taking care of me while my body tried to heal. So I played the grateful daughter, and I kept my mouth shut when she inevitably broke my boundaries. And one such boundary was, please do not touch me. And this is especially true given the previous issues mentioned. After about 6 months, she started talking to a guy who lived overseas. She claimed he was going to come into our lives and give us everything that we needed. He was going to pay to get her issues fixed up and get us a nice house and all this other crap. But obviously, this was a scam, and I definitely said as much, but did she listen? No, of course not. She sent him enough money to start a building project of some kind, and maybe it was a house, I'm not really sure as she didn't specify, but she lied about that too, even when she lost her apartment due to too much missed rent. Now this part isn't as worse as everything else she's done or continues to do, it just makes me really angry for some reason. She got me pizza for my birthday while we were out living in our cars, which I didn't pass up because we were otherwise frequently starving. She said she also bought one of those brownie trays and asked if I remembered her making me brownies for my birthday when I was a kid. When I told her no, she asked me if I remembered anything good from my childhood. After that, I said no, and she then started crying. Then she took the brownies with her and ate them alone all by herself. And it's like, okay, I didn't want anything for my birthday anyways. I didn't even want to acknowledge it that year. But why even mention that as if it were a birthday thing just to eat them all yourself? And by the way, I'll say it again, we were basically starving at the time. She did things like that a lot, doing favors for people like driving them around and asking for candy or sweets or soda in return, but rarely any food. And then she would just eat all of it herself. I swear, in the nearly 9 months that we were out there, she somehow gained weight while I lost a significant amount of weight. But now that we're housed, she is no better. We have cats again, despite her history of them passing away. She vapes in and around the house all the time, and I've urged her to stop, but she won't do it. She was also sleeping with her boyfriend upstairs, but his snoring kept her awake, so now she sleeps right outside my room with her TV on at all hours of the night, keeping me awake. And when I ask her to stop sleeping with the TV on, she says I'm not respecting her PTSD coping methods or whatever, even though she slept without a TV plenty while we've been here with no issues. She's also incredibly loud. She's never below an outside volume, waking me up all the time. She quit her job recently because she didn't like that her boss had to train her because she's so full of herself that she thinks she's the best and hardest worker to literally any job she works. She's constantly moaning because she's in pain, and it keeps her from complaining about it, even though she does that plenty. She does all of these things that for a while I can bite my tongue, but eventually it gets too much and she'll do or say something to just set me off. And I then tell her how she's making me feel, but she then uses that against me, takes my anger as an aggression to make me out to be the bad guy, tells me that I'm selfish, spoiled, ungrateful, says I'm always negative and that I'm never happy. But that's just the thing. I was depressed for 15 years, and despite all odds, I somehow managed to pull myself most of the way out of it. Religion helped a lot, and for a while I could smile at the rising sun. I felt like I could breathe again. I was so proud of myself. And you know what? I was excited about life and my future. And for the first time in around 15 years, I didn't want to pass away. But she is becoming too much. Every time that we get into a yelling match, she throws insults at me. She projects all of these things that she does onto me. She makes me out to be the awful person that she is. I felt no joy to be alive today. I felt no passion. I felt no interest in anything. I didn't even take care of myself. I hardly even ate any food today. I just stayed in bed to rot. I was supposed to be here until at least August of 2026, but I don't think I can make it. She's driving me insane. I haven't been manipulated the way she's manipulating me since I lived with my father and his girlfriend in 2021. I thought I escaped it before, but I'm trapped once again. And all of this just feels like a cruel joke. Oh man, I really hope the original poster is able to move out and move on from this lady. Your mom sounds like an awful person and I'm so sorry for the way she treated you. Like seriously, she sounds so bad. She not only mistreated you your entire life, but then she tries to turn it around and be like, oh no, this is your fault. Basically projecting all of her insecurities onto you. So hopefully life works out for you and hopefully this all somehow gets like figured out where you're able to have another place to live and you don't have to deal with her. Because the way she's treating you is completely unfair. Am I overreacting after my boss called my pregnancy a mistake? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female and I'm seeing a 27-year-old coworker, and honestly, to put it bluntly, I got pregnant. However, we kept it a secret, but then rumors got around at work that I was pregnant because I was starting to show. I was always pale and tired and even threw up as I was experiencing the normal symptoms of being pregnant. Now, for a bit of background information that might be a little bit useless, me seeing this coworker became a controversy at work because, well, everyone hates the guy and he is a jerk to people and I'm all rainbows and sunshine. We are polar opposites and our coworkers didn't like that. We just tell everyone at work that we're friends while also denying anything that they have to say, despite the fact that it's not any of their business that we're together or not. My boss also doesn't like me for some reason, but I'm sure it's because I made an anonymous report on him for being degrading to the women employees, and somehow he found out and even confronted me about it. So he's been targeting me at work while also giving me less and less hours to work, leading me to already looking for another job. However, to fast forward, I ended up having a miscarriage and I called off the week sick and I came back tomorrow. Then my boyfriend called me and told me about a conversation my boss had with him today. My boss asked my boyfriend who he talks with at work, and for reference, my boyfriend doesn't really talk to anybody and he just keeps to himself, and that's exactly what he said. Then my boss was like, oh, well, what about a certain young woman in this department? And my boss was referring to me. After my boyfriend said that we're just friends, my boss said, oh, really? I heard a lot of things, and are you sure you're just friends? Because it better stay that way. Don't want to make any mistakes. Now at this point, my boyfriend told me that our boss kept repeating the word mistake to him, and eventually he walked away from his boss. So not only am I upset with what I'm dealing with, but I'm also upset that he was suggesting the pregnancy was a mistake. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and I honestly just can't stop thinking about all of this. So seriously, am I overreacting about this situation? Or is this a circumstance that I should just let go? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and very confused, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I don't think you're overreacting because you know what? Your boss has no place to talk to you or your boyfriend like that. It really seems like he was trying to fish for information about the two of you, and he was obviously trying to suggest like, oh yeah, you guys better just stay friends, as if there would be some kind of consequence if you didn't. And that is really weird and super toxic, like you guys don't deserve that. And trust me, I understand what someone listening might think right now, and I completely agree. In most cases, you really should not date your coworkers. Like it's really not the best idea, and chances are you don't even like them and you're just around them a lot, so that's why you're attracted to them. Also, if you have a breakup in that kind of environment, like it really tanks your career and it could ruin people's lives. People can have hurt feelings, then everything's weird in the office, and it's like, okay, someone's got to make a job change or something because this is awful. But from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like this is the case between you and your boyfriend, and honestly, it sounds like a normal relationship that you're just keeping on the down low. So for your boss to come to your boyfriend and be like, oh yeah, mistakes happen, like that really does seem like double speak where he's saying one thing but he also means another, as if your pregnancy was a mistake, and like that is so weird. Your boss has no room to talk about this, and honestly, he really should mind his own business. So no, I don't blame you for looking for another job, and I honestly don't blame you for getting upset about this, because I know if I was in your shoes or your boyfriend's shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and also please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.